What's up, SHIHAN? How are you?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
I'm
shit.
good. You?
Okay. Oh, there you go. Look at you looking mature with your gray.
Yeah, it's there.
Let me change my
How you
back.
doing? How you feeling?
I just woke up from a nap. It rained. I was knocked out. It was like, woo. I ran around, did all my running around earlier, and I needed that nap. Just came over
I,
me.
I nap every day, so I'm good on naps.
All right, here we go.
I'm a believer in naps.
Hmm.
So how long you been doing this?
This on Zoom. I've been doing this on Zoom since January, but I've been doing this program for 3 years.
Oh, word. Okay.
Mhm. It's really dope because it was like, well, between our generation, me and you, and like not Barack Obama, what's his name? Namir Baraka. Like they didn't sit down with us and tell us or give
Oh,
us advice. I mean, if we caught them somewhere, sure, but there was
yeah.
nobody said, not even Jessica. I mean, Jessica's only a couple years older than us. She's 50, I think.
Yeah.
But even she didn't, I mean, nobody was like, okay, at least, not even this is the way, because there's no spoken word way, right? But at least, like, this is what I did, this is what you could do,
Right.
whatever. And so in Atlanta, I was just really sick of hearing the same poems over and over again. I don't know if it's like that in LA, but
Yeah, it is.
I was sick of that. I was sick of saying the same poems, and I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of poems. And then the other thing is, I've been pegged as this artist business guru, and I'm like, I just follow what my peers are doing. You know what I mean? Like the people that are making money. I mean, both
Yeah.
C ain't broke, and fucking who else ain't broke? What's her name? Stacey and Chen ain't broke either.
Right.
So I mean, and a lot of the poets live really good, healthy lives. This whole peddling, you don't have to do that because we did that. Like it's a whole different.
Exactly.
It's
It's
a
a different economy.
it's a different economy, and there's the fucking social media. Like poets are making money on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like so, and there's brave new voices, and I mean, I think that deaf poetry era was like the beginning of branding as like you being a brand as a poet. Like
Right.
this is who I am.
Hmm.
And then just really kind of riding that out and going from there and then just really
Yeah, I
living
think a lot
through
of
that.
people just didn't know what to do with that. You know what I mean? Because again, there still is no mechanism in place really for poets in the same way. Like if I'm a songwriter, I know I could talk to ASCAP, BMI, I could be around singers and da 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 da. As a poet, you're just like, all right, so I'm gonna do some poems and
Mhm.
perform somewhere and hopefully keep performing because that's the thing too, or maybe get a book or self-publish my book. And the way it is
And
now,
even if they did
like
a poetry album, it was a lot of them were so whack that they weren't real albums. They were just poems over music. It wasn't a
right.
produced album. And I think Talam did a really good job with starting that.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if he was the only one. I'm just saying that I think that was a good time where people were starting to make actual albums, like get their friends on, get their hip hop artist friends on, get their singers on, use a
Right.
band. They were thinking more in terms of production than just poems over music. Poems over music drive me nuts.
Right. Right.
Were you on
Yeah.
that call with us the other day with the Grammys and Jay Ivy?
No. Uh-uh.
Oh, that it was good, but it was good. He did a good job. This is being recorded.
Oh, okay.
um, it was good. He did a good job. It was a powerhouse on there. Like Paul Wall was on there. I was like, Paul Wall does poetry. Why is he on here? Like I was like, but maybe he does poetry. I have no idea, right? But I mean, it was. I'm surprised you weren't on there. Like everybody named Mama was on there. Name it, they were on there. But so, but it still wasn't. They were like, "Oh, we're gonna take this back, and we'll let y'all know." Of course. But the basic thing was just making spoken word its own category in the Grammys to give us another shot.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, I think obviously they should, or I think they should change that read your book and be it a Grammy fucking thing. Cause
Books on tape, yeah.
yeah, cause I I think it would be a great thing, but I think also it's gonna cause yet another thing for poets to be upset at each other about because so and so shit should have been there. Why it's only because they knew the fucking rule, or because and it's corny. Um, but at the same time, it's like, I've heard a million things about like, let's start a union.
I tried to start a union in Atlanta. This shit did not work, yo.
Dude, in
Because
90,
somebody's always undercutting the union.
well, that's the thing. 96 was the first conversation in LA about trying to do a union.
Okay.
And then, it was the motherfucker who was starting it. Well, that nigga's whack. How's this nigga gonna run the fucking union? And I'm just like,
oh my
God.
God.
Yeah, I didn't think he was the dopest poet, but he had a plan. And he was like, and I was like, yo, we might as well at least give it the shot. Because the thing is, a lot of shit don't succeed because it's never even given the shot. Like, he's at least put some shit in order. He's put a plan together. He has a thing. But it was like, well, where the dues going? Why we got to pay the dues? And I'm just like, okay. So then it fell apart. And then it came up again, like right around 2000. Again, didn't really do nothing. And then that poetry came out and everyone was like, no, we should do a union again. And then it just becomes an argument. Because no one, first of all, there's a handful of motherfuckers who are organized enough and disciplined enough to maintain a plan like that. And so you see the people who are starting it or doing it, and you're like, oh fuck, like I wanna, but this nigga like is not the move. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's something too, because poets have for so long kind of been on their own thing that they're not as comfortable allowing motherfuckers to be part of something. That's right. Without like trying to maintain such a heavy hand on stuff. Yeah. And I've had a million conversations about that just by itself. I've had conversations about the Grammy thing because again, who's doing it, who's leading it. Mm-hmm. There's the trickle down of like, well, that motherfucker's doing it. Like, why the fuck is it? And you get all that shit. And again, like some people.
When my albums were up for a Grammy in, got down here 5, then made the album in 6, in 7 and 9. So 07 and 09. And then there was a big movement around that time for some reason. What's up, Dominique? We're not officially started. We're just kind of talking amongst ourselves right now. So I remember it was like, oh, you have to have a website. You have to, and like poets didn't have the fucking basic website. Like, one page. And I remember it was a poet named Mecca, a couple of other poets. We were using 1-in-1. And which is an old, they're still around, but it was the old, but you actually had to know how to code a little bit. So we went out and got coding for dummies. So, I mean, it was just so much slower. And now with all the technology that's out, you're damn near your own paparazzi, your own coder, your own website builder, but then you need to like clone yourself. So that was one of the reasons I started this, is because I wanted the up and coming poets, and I don't mean even by age, because people are popping in at all sorts of ages, right? So whenever they start, I want them to know, like, if you really want to do this, or at least stay in the rotation of people being called upon, like this is a full-time fucking job, at least a 70% job where every day you're posting about yourself, or posting a poem, or posting a video, or learning new technology. Like it was in this class, the winter session, that one of the students was like, yo, we need to join TikTok. And I was like, fuck TikTok, it's gonna come and go. He was like, no, it's the #1 downloaded app. And so in class, we all downloaded TikTok and started, doing TikToks. I've actually fallen off. But then just learning how to, my whole thing was streamlining and learning how to integrate from TikTok to Instagram, so I don't have to do it twice. And really, that's what this whole College of Dope Ass Writers thing came about, because it was like, it's just more than getting on stage and reading your fucking journal entry. If you want it to be considered poetry, like you can get up there and rant and rave all you want to, but I'm not calling you to do a feature, you know? And then it's just like having this, I don't know if it was the North or what, but when I lived up North, which Virginia's not even really considered the North, but we were the North because we were with DC, Delaware, Philly, New York. We could not slide. Like them motherfuckers in New York and New Jersey and Philly were like, oh, that's whack. See you next week. Like down in the South, it's like, oh, that's so good you tried. And I'd just be like, I want to stab myself in the thigh, yo. Like, what the fuck was that?
You know, that's kind of how it was here. That was, it was definitely here. And that was, and you know, and that's part of how, you know, the rapper, like, that nigga Shihan's mad, or not mad, that nigga's mean. I'm like, nah, first of all, I don't think I should tell you that's great if it's whack, or it's okay. Like, it's cool to be like, yo, that was cool. Not, yo, shit was amazing. Like, no, nigga, like, sometimes it's important to kick the chair out so you can go, yo, it's not settled properly. You have to settle that and get that shit stuck. You can't just be up there like, and you know, and that was the thing with the
because you're only as great as your friends.
And that's true. And that's, you know, that's a big thing. And I think with the lounge, we were lucky to a certain degree. None of us were the same as far as style, personality. And so it wasn't, so that already had a built-in thing. So when people saw it, and especially at that point, we were performing all the fucking time, they were like, oh, there's a sound. There's about a uniqueness about your voice that's important to stick out in a fucking group of people. And I was, you know, I found a list. I was talking to Talam about this. I found a list from 2004, and it was when he was living out here. And the list is like open mic list. This ain't like the special list. It's like Talam AC, Buddy Wakefield, Rachel McKibben, Gina Loring, Bridget Gray, Javon, me, Reed, They Cool the Misfits, Steve Compton, like, blah, blah. And I'm like,
that's the open mic?
That's the open mic. And I'm like, but the thing also with the mic was, especially when we first started, like people would come, and also because I was, you know, I wasn't new. I was new to LA when I got here in '94, but
where'd you move? Where are you from?
From New York.
Really?
Yeah. So I knew everybody, and so when they started coming, and I remember when the first time Saul came to the lounge, and he was like, he was sitting with me and we were talking, and he was like, yo, there's a lot of people talking about God, right? It just happened to be a bunch of poets doing poems about God. And the whole night, people were like, oh, that's Saul Williams. You know, that whole shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, why didn't you put him up? I'm like, because he don't have to go up. Just because motherfuckers show up.
And he didn't want to go up. Oh, you know what? I actually.
And there's no need for it.
And actually, and without arrogance, when I show up at an open mic, I have a bit of anxiety because I'm like, I just want to enjoy the show. Today, I'm coming to enjoy the show. And then it's always like a slight line between disrespect and appreciation when they say, do you want to get up? And it's just like, I get where you're coming from, but I'm not even promoted to be here. So, you know, there's got to be some sort of mutual exchange for me to even like, you know, or I could have helped you. I could, like, my name has a little bit of weight. Like I could have brought 10 people, you know what I mean? If gave me 2 weeks, I could have brought 20. Gave me a month, I could have brought 200, you know what I mean? So, but that's a crazy open mic list. And I know when they even watch this back, they won't even know who the fuck we're talking about. But, well, they know Talam, he's been on here too, to speak. But I don't think you know what? You should send me that list because I think you're the first West Coast person I've pulled from, because I was just, you know, thinking about people I like. And they actually requested you because they didn't think, I don't know if they didn't think it was real. They were just like, it'd be nice to have SHIHAN. Like, I bet you can't do that. And I was like, oh, that's why I called you on speaker last week. Like, really? Like, these are my friends, guys. These are my real friends. Now, Omari, the only reason, now I'm gonna say obviously the reason is because of Power, but guys, he definitely was in my phone up until Power, for sure. I mean, because he hosted our what's that joint that we taped out there in LA? Not Lyric Cafe, Verses and Flow. Yeah, He was part of he was a part of y'all original crew at the Lounge, wasn't he?
He was part of the original crew, and he was part of the 04 team when we won. So he, you know, that's the thing.
Omari Ghost was a slam poet.
Yeah.
He got a few songs too.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
so
I think he got one called Hero or something like that.
Yeah, no, he has a whole album.
Yeah,
I mean, a whole album of stuff.
That he's singing.
He was on Tank's album too.
What's the little? Oh shit, Robert Johnson? No, I'm gonna get all the people that were on there. Yeah, okay. He had sent me the thing to like listen and like talk about songs and structure and feedback and stuff. So he has a whole. Let's see if I.
He's on Tank's album too somewhere.
Yeah, they're boys. You know, this might be it. Okay.
I one day.
Yeah, I love Omari. That's the beautiful human being.
Ass album. This
one day I was seeing
the version I have has 19 songs.
Send me that shit. Email me that. Oh my God, that's so funny. We haven't officially started, you guys. We were just in here chatting a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he has an album. But I think there's a lot of people that have info. You know, every now and then, like I talk to, you know, some of the older. They're not even.
I haven't talked to Bosia in.
I haven't spoke to Bo in a minute.
Yeah.
You know, he's always been kind of how.
The grapevine that he was in a car accident and then that was.
Yeah, he had hurt his back. Yeah, his back was hurt. But he's fine. He's if I'm not mistaken, I think he's with Saul. I think him and Saul are.
Yeah, I heard that he was back up and running, and I actually heard that Saul was back in the streets too, which was interesting.
Yeah, because he was in Paris for years.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
So. I know he was friends with Gina, and she went to visit him in Paris for a little while. And actually, Gina was the one who convinced me to go to grad school, and I'm glad I went. I went out there with them to LA at Antioch first. I hated Antioch. It was whack. And then I came and finished back over here at Queens in Charlotte, not New York. People always think it was New York. I was like, not New York. You know what? I could have guessed by your accent you were from New York. I don't know where I just thought it was like the Puerto Rican LA mix thing. I don't know. What I
think just got people so long, people just assume.
What'd you say?
I just assume most people just know me because they met me here. So they just assume I've been in LA since forever. They're just like, oh, they're in LA. You know what I mean? So,
but I guess you don't really have an LA accent.
And I was.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I have an LA accent, and I think there's certain things I say. I'm like, yeah, you could tell.
Yeah.
Like I know when I say for or
yeah,
they're like, oh, okay, this. You know.
Yeah. Well, we got looks like half the crew in here. You guys, I'm going to introduce SHIHAN. Please keep your cameras on so he can see your faces. Zoom is already weird enough. But yeah, there's about 13 people signed up for this course. We are on week 7. We graduate next week. This is a second installment online, and Starry, Justin, Corban are all veterans. Starry was never part of the live series, but Justin, Corban were. Dominique is not new to me, but she's new to Coda. And then Miss Julie is also not new to me. She's actually in Texas. She's in Dallas. She's a erotic poet and a slam poet down there in Texas. She does other things too. She owns her own business, all this other stuff, but I'm just kind of letting y'all know. Corban is this crazy ass. Corban to me is a conundrum, an anomaly. This motherfucker, and this is a compliment. So Corban works the weirdest jobs to be as genius as she is. This motherfucker had worked at like Jersey Mike's or some shit for like 5 years. I'm making that up. I'm making that part up. But it was like, what was it? It was a sandwich shop, right? It was Jersey Mike's?
It was Jersey Mike's for 2 years, and then I went to McAllister.
But she knows every literary book in the fucking world, like every poem, every author, she's a fucking walking encyclopedia of authors and poetry and Black literature and regular and American literature. And I'm like, why the fuck are you working at Jersey Mike's? Like, it's nuts. You know what I mean? So, but I, hey, I don't know people's lives, whatever. I don't know, but anyway, Corban has been around since the beginning of Coda when we were in my living room. So it started in my living room, outgrew my living room. My living room is not that big, but it held 15 to 20 people, like all kind of, all over the place. And I got that idea from the Last Poets doing their fish fry, which I told them. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was kind of, so SHIHAN and I were talking a little bit before about how the generations above us, even older than us, chronologically older than us, never really gave us kind of like a path. There isn't one, right? Which is what we're learning here in Coda. You just make up as you go, but nobody at least had this to say, okay, this is what I did, and you run with it how you want to run with it. So there wasn't that. So, but I think that was cool that the Last Poets had that fish fry in their house every Sunday. So that was cool. So Miss Jolie, who else is in here that I can't see right now? Nora, she's new to me and new to College of Dope Ass Writers. She is in Cincinnati, Ohio. We had somebody from Vegas, Miss Jolie. So Nora's in Cincinnati. Starry is in North Carolina. Miss Jolie is in Texas. Justin is here. Jay Catrice is here. Jay Catrice has a full-time job at Delta, so she's able to fly around the world when she's ready to start performing all over the place, which is a fucking gem in itself. Dominique runs her own show. Corban, I already told you, is this sandwich making literary genius. And then now I'm going to introduce you. They know me. Okay, so SHIHAN and I legit have been friends since 2003. And the reason I know it was 2003 specifically is because I got fired from Bank of America in 2001. And that's when I met Talam and Lamar. They were visiting Norfolk, Virginia. I met Lamar first and then Talam. And then kind of, it was one of those things where Talam was big shit at the time. So wait a minute. When did you move to LA?
94.
Oh, 94. Okay. So then Talam was like, okay, Sheba, looks like, you're doing your thing on the East Coast. You're making your way. And Talam definitely was my mentor for sure. He was helping me out. And he was like, you should come to the West Coast. And I told y'all before, Lamar, he had offered that same opportunity to Lamar to go over there and handhold him through the venues and introduce him and stuff. And Lamar didn't take it. Lamar did not take it. I was like, I'm gone, I'm out. Where are we going? What are we doing? And so Talam took me on kind of a West Coast tour. Like I was doing the open mic and he was doing the feature, which is a very common thing. Y'all should do that with people that y'all love. And but that's how you get introduced to all the promoters and the organizers, et cetera, et cetera. So SHIHAN has been running the Poetry Lounge since what year?
98.
Since 98. And it is where Def Poetry got their idea. He'll tell you about that in his talk in a little bit. And they came in there and bogarted. They were like, yeah, this is cool. We're going to do this on TV. You could be a part of it or not. And SHIHAN was like, whoa, of course I'm going to be a part of it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So SHIHAN did try to book me for Def Poetry when it came out. However, I was bald at the time, and Russell Simmons and Stan Lathan were not having a bald motherfucking woman on their show. They wanted hair and Afrocentricity and whatever they wanted. I wasn't it. But
are you serious?
That's
I'm sorry.
That's
my God.
So later on, there was a woman that got on there that was bald, and she had a story about New Orleans, and they liked that, so they let her on the show. But I never was on Def Poetry. I get introduced like that sometimes. I don't even correct it, because to me, it's just a testament of how much work I've done that they just like, fuck it, you must have been on Def Poetry too. Like, you must have did that shit along with the rest of the shit you've done. But I never was on not one show. And matter of fact, I was hating so much, I never watched the shit. That's how much I was like, fuck. I only watched it. This is the honest to God truth. I only watched it if I was at somebody's house and they were like, yo, you want to watch that poetry? And of course I'd be like, yeah, sure. I'm being political, nice, whatever. Like, but I never watched it, never kept up with it. I mean, of course, I knew who was on it from the grapevine, but I never watched one motherfucking show on my own, bitches. So fuck y'all. But anyway, so
That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's crazy.
it is. It's nuts.
All because you ain't had no hair on your head.
That's right. They was like, she too, whatever. I don't know. Who knows? I've always worn stilettos, so the femininity was there. I don't know what the fuck they was looking for. But yeah, SHIHAN has always had me at the lounge whenever I came out there after the, first time with Talam. I did my thing on the open mic. People liked me. Some of my best videos are Deaf Digital. So after Deaf Poetry, SHIHAN was then in charge of video and Deaf Digital. So anybody you see with that black box that says Deaf Digital, that's at the Poetry Lounge now, currently, and going forward. And then SHIHAN also brought Poetry versus Hip Hop to back to the Greenway Theater, which is where they are. And y'all are in Melrose, right? That's Melrose?
Yeah.
In Melrose at the Greenway Theater. And that was the Get Down Festival. And that was the 2 years going to 2 years before COVID. And that was just so dope. And we were able to have Buddy Wakefield and Kevin Sandbloom and Christopher Michael. And it was just great. So like I said, SHIHAN could talk forever as just like me or any of my other friends, but he's going to do 20 minutes. Put your questions in the chat and he will decide if he'll answer them during his talk or after. So welcome my very good friend, SHIHAN Van Cliff. Now I'm realizing originally from New York, but LA gang. Oh, the other thing that I really loved about SHIHAN was that when Puerto Rico got in the tsunami thingamajiggy happening, he was one of the people to lead an organization to go over there and help clean up the island because he's Puerto Ricano. And I thought that was really dope too. So activist, poet, actor, and he did that Pepsi commercial. Did your hair really catch on fire or was that a rumor?
That was a rumor.
So, y'all all know, that's why y'all asked for him, because he had that big ass ponytail through the 90s and the 2000s. And he did a Pepsi commercial. And then I don't know how the rumor got started. I think it was a cross between you and Michael Jackson rumor. I really think that happened because the Pepsi commercial had like sparks. Everyone's like, oh, SHIHAN's ponytail got caught on fire. And I was like, he still has the ponytail. So I don't get it. But anyway, go ahead. I am. All right.
Cool. So good. Thank you very much, Shiva. All right. So I'm originally from New York, born and raised. I moved out to LA in 94, actually right before 94. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay. And then I came back for short in 94. And I was at the time where my best friend at the time OD'd. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, very important. Never have, never will. Don't drink, don't smoke. And I had a friend who did, and he OD'd. And I actually held him as it happened. And I was just going through some shit. A whole lot of shit was going on in my head. And I had just moved to LA, so it was everything was new, environment-wise. And my brother, one of my friends, I called my brother, was like, yo, I'm gonna take you out, dude, because it seemed like you got a lot going on. And so he takes me out to Melrose to this restaurant called Georgia's, who Denzel Washington and Debbie Allen used to own a restaurant on Melrose called Georgia's. And we get in line, right? And wait in line for like an hour. And I don't dress up. So this, she asked me to do this, I'm dressed. Like I'm wearing a t-shirt and some shorts. That's my dress up. So I go, we stand in this line and get to the front of the line. The dude's like, yo, you can't come in. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, you can't wear jeans and a t-shirt in the club. And I'm like, really? And my brother was like, all right, dude, well, I'll see you later. And he went inside the club and left me outside. So I'm sitting there and I didn't drive. So I'm looking around and I see this window front. And I see this poet named D Knowledge, who I had read in an anthology and seen on a show, Tommy at the Apollo. And I was like, oh shit, that's D Knowledge. And I walked across the street and it was a place called the Juke Joint. And it was ran by the guy who played Harpo in The Color Purple. That's who owned the place. So I went inside and there was a lady there named Ronnie Walters. And she says, $2 to get in. I paid $2. She asked me if I wanted to sign the list. And I sat down in the back and I just watched poets just read poems. And that night, this poet named Jerry Quickly, who's an incredible poet, also from New York, but was living in LA. And then I met a poet named Poetry. And this other poet named Dante Bosco. And I winded up just watching them read. And right before the end of the night, the lady, Ronnie, comes back up to me. She goes, you sure you don't want to read? And my brother comes in and goes, put his name on the list as SHIHAN. So I wind up getting up and I kept my eyes closed the whole time, did my poem and shit. And when I got off stage and the night ended, I walked outside and Dante and Poetry came over to me and they were like, yo, where you from? I've seen you before, blah, blah, blah. And those are 2 of the 3 other members that founded the Poetry Lounge. That is a venue we've been running for 23 years. It originally started in a living room and became the inspiration for what Def Poetry was. And, you know, like along the way, it's a weird journey, right? Because art is always dependent on other people liking it and supporting it if you want to have it as a career, if you want to have it as a career. If you're just doing it for yourself, it doesn't matter. But if you want to have it as a career, you're dependent on other people liking it and supporting it, right? So I learned early the importance of hearing no and not letting that stop what I wanted to do. And so I remember my first paid feature. It was $15 and dinner at this place called the Shark Bar. And I called Poetry, who's my best friend. I was like, nigga, I'm getting $15 and dinner. You need to go over there and try and get a feature. And I was just so excited to get $15 and some fucking dinner. And I just tried to read as many spots as I could. And at that point, I was reading about 6 times a week, right? And from there, we started running a venue, and we realized the venues in LA. So LA is really spread out, right? It's a huge fucking space, but it's spread. So if you live in one place, you don't necessarily have to fuck with other spots if you don't want to. So one of the issues that was going on was this Lamert Park, which is, you know, the black Afrocentric wearing my shit is going down spot. And they had an issue that they believed real poetry didn't really exist north of Olympic Boulevard. So they didn't think our shit was real. So we used to go down there just to like prove our shit. And they were all older than we were. And what I realized doing that is that your writing and your stories aren't going to connect with everybody, even if they black, even if they whatever, it doesn't matter. Different experiences, different stories and different poems. And so what wound up happening is I started trying to prove that my story was valid. I already knew it was valid to myself. I believed my story was valid, but I was trying to get other people to hear what I had to say. And also I was young at the time. I was a teenager. I was the youngest in the group. I was 17 at the time. And I was like, I need to figure out a way to write so that other people understand what it is I'm going through, right? And one of the things I got early was that not everybody understands the adjectives of my life in the terms of not everybody's young black dude from New York, moved to LA, who raised by a single father. Not everybody understands that, but they understand love, pain, happiness, loneliness, sadness, whatever it is. The emotions of the experience were more important. So I started writing from a perspective of emotion, from an emotional standpoint, because I knew people could connect to an emotion quicker than they could connect to my process at that point was with music. I used to always listen to music, and it was whatever. At that point, I listened to whatever was on, and I was a big De La Soul fan, so I'm like, De La Soul was playing, Redman was big in my shit, and I would listen to that, but what winds up happening is I was being distracted by the shit that I was hearing, because I'm listening and I'm singing along, and then I'm all of a sudden starting not paying attention to my writing, and so I changed my writing from listening with words to listening to instrumental shit. So I started listening to, which I still listen to this day, is flamenco sketches from Miles Davis. I listened to that on repeat. So literally I listened to that one song and one composition on repeat. So for like 3 hours, I'll just listen to flamenco sketches. The other thing I do when I write is I always kept it in a space not where I was comfortable, right? Because you want to eliminate distractions when it comes to process, right? Whatever your process is, you should be eliminating as many distractions as possible from your process so that you don't fuck up. And so I wouldn't write in my house. I wouldn't write at my friend's house. I would write in a park. I would write in a written all over random fucking places. Sometimes I take bus. This is when I used to be on a bus. I would literally be on the bus and put my flamenco sketches on and listen with a CD player. I'd just be on a bus riding wherever that shit went is where I wrote until, and then I got off and I got on the bus back. And I believe that's important because I think for your creativity, I think your craft deserves a space of its own, right? So, you know, when I'm home, you know, we have 3 kids. My wife and I, we have 3 kids. I don't have the luxury of the time I had when I was younger, right? I'm a father, I'm a husband. I gotta make sure everyone's eating, fed, putting big kids to bed, make sure I'm spending time with my wife, all those things, right? So my process can't take place here because I know those things exist here. And not to say that they can't coexist, but if I want the best and the most optimal results, I'm gonna have to do that. So like, you know, I believe in change and the importance of change. So this is like random as fuck, but I have this board right behind me, and like this is my shit right here. So obsolete ideas equal obsolete results, right? I'm big on changing up what the fuck it is you do, because if it doesn't work for you anymore, you can't try to force something that doesn't play with you anymore to want to play, right? The other thing on my shit is don't be an asshole in your writing. Make me feel and write better. Those are my things that I have next to me at all times, right? Because I believe I can't assume, oh, you know what? This is some random shit. I'm skipping around. Deaf poetry, right? I left deaf poetry when my daughter was just born. I did not want to move back to New York and go to Broadway. And so I stayed in LA. And because I wanted to be there for my family, you know? And I remember like people thinking, why would you not take that opportunity, right? Like, don't you know, is Broadway, it's the first time poets are gonna be on Broadway, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, my family means more to me than the opportunity to perform on Broadway. And so I stayed here. I winded up getting poetry, who's also my best friend, Stan Lathan, who's the director of Deaf Poetry, director of films and television shit too. But Stan called me and he goes, who do you think would fit? And he told me who he was looking at, right? And he gave me the list of the poets. And I was like, yo, you need to switch this up. You need to get someone who's lighter because you got all these motherfuckers who are angry. And I don't want to pay $75 to watch a bunch of niggas angry at me, because that's what it comes off as, right? And he goes, who would you suggest? And I'm like, well, I'm biased, but I'm picking poetry because all these niggas you got on here is angry, and it'd be cool to have someone who's Black, important, husband, and be an example, and is not mad as shit, and is lovable and sociable. Like poetry is basically how he is in his poems. He's very, you know, hugs everybody, talks to everybody, all this shit. And so Stan goes, all right, don't call him. Don't call him. And like 15 minutes later, congratulations, dude, da 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 da. And he left. But having these are like the weird, art is a weird life. That's the thing I recognize talking out, saying shit out loud, because most of the shit's all in my head. But when I say this shit out loud, I'm like, oh shit. The importance of mentors. I know I brought up Stan, right? I brought up Stan Lathan. Stan Lathan I met in 98.
Let me interrupt you right there. I want to give you guys some context.
I'm Black in Puerto Rican. My dad is Black. My dad is Black, and I was raised by my dad. My mother's Puerto Rican.
Hold on.
I was like, he gonna get y'all once he catch on to this shit.
So I want to give y'all some context. Do you realize what name he's saying? Stan Lathan is whose father? You guys, not you, SHIHAN. Sanaya.
Wait, that again?
I'm trying to get them to understand who Stan Lathan is.
Yeah, Sanaya's dad.
Sanaya Lathan's father, right? But Stan Lathan also produced 50 million shows on television, too. Anyway,
from fucking Sanford and Son to everything. I mean, the Bernie Mac, Cedric the Entertainer show, Steve Harvey show, Falcon's Crest. He was the first Black dude to direct the episode of Falcon, like soap operas and shit. of shit. And the thing that Stan and I connected on was the idea that artists could have more opportunity if they recognize it early enough and early in their thing and were open to it, right? Because one of my conversations, I used to go to breakfast on Fridays with Stan. And I asked Stan one time, does he regret are there any regrets in his career? And he goes, I don't know if I'd say it's a regret, but there's a time in all artists' life that he believes that you either decide you're doing it for the art or you're going to do it for the money. And he goes, I was doing it for the art for so long that I wanted to see what it was like to do it for the money. And he goes, I did it for the money and I haven't looked back since. But the thing I do kind of regret is when I look at people like Ava DuVernay, Ryan Coogler, he goes, to me, the fact that they were able to find the balance of creating art and make money doing it is something that I'll always appreciate, because I never was able to find that spot, because at that point, they weren't hiring a bunch of Black directors to do shit in the first place. So I understood what that is, because as a poet, I know when I would try and get poetry gigs, I go, yo, I'm a poet. And they're like, oh, you rap? And I'm like, no, I do poetry. And they're like, oh, you rapper? And I'm like, no, I do poems. And there was no mechanism to show people what it is I did. And when Def Poetry came out, all of a sudden I could say, this is what I do. And so the entire market changed and the environment for poetry changed, because then you could look at something and all the poets around the world who wrote and felt like their story should reach a large platform finally had a platform. The problem is, anytime something goes to television, it becomes a demographic thing. It becomes what works for the show, what doesn't work for the show. So I remember when Stan came to the lounge, said, we're going to do a show, you want to be involved? And I said, yeah. He was saying, you're going to have some difficult decisions to make. And there was a board, a giant white board. Well, it was the wall, really, in the offices. And it had names, all the poets, right? So poets were sending me tapes. I'd have to watch tapes. Then the tapes I'd go to Stan's, and then we would watch the tapes again. And then we would take those names and we would put them on a board. The fucked up part, which I didn't know was going to be part of the process, was they would lay out all the names, and then it would go, we have Omari and Jamel, who's my DJ at the lounge. Omari and Jamel, who you putting on the show? And I was like, oh, fuck. Do I really have to? And he's like, who's going to go on the show? Gina Loring or Bridget Gray? Oh, fuck. And then
Gina Loring.
I did. Gina. I was like, but the thing was, he go, okay, now you have to call them both. And that's fucked.
Oh.
Side of it also prepared me early, because I was able to go, oh, this ain't just, they're just gonna bring poets because they're just in love with poetry. Now, Stan has a background and loves to write, loves poetry, all that stuff. Russell too, his brother, especially his brother and their family, but it's still like there's a breakdown. Like I remember like the need to have like a foreign person on the show. Like that sounds fucked up saying like a foreigner, and it was like this dude from Australia, I forgot his name. But I was kind of like, like that, right? And then I remember auditions, because they also felt, especially HBO, felt like they didn't know if the show was gonna work, because were people really gonna tune in to watch people just tell their stories and that's it? And so they wanted celebrities on the show. I was against that initially. I was against it because I go, and especially when they started putting comics on the show. I had a long conversation with Stan and Russell about that shit, where I was like, I don't think they should be on the show. I don't think they should be on the show at all. And he's like, yeah, but it may drive people to watch the show. And I go, yeah, but they already had Def Comedy Jam. Like, I don't think that's fucking cool. And I remember getting into a thing in backstage with Jamie Foxx when he went on the show, and he did this poem, and he was like joking, and he was lighting incense, and he was like, and clap for the poet, and he did this whole fucking thing. And I went in the back, and I was like, yo, I don't think that's funny, like at all, at all. And he's like, why, da-da-da. And I go, if I went to your fucking comedy club and I was like, they talking shit about you because these niggas is insecure, you wouldn't like that. It wouldn't be funny to you if I said that, right? And he's like, no, I get you, young man, something, something, something. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still fucked up. Like, I take it personally because we don't get opportunities like you do. A comic, look, when you say you're gonna hire a comic, you know what you're gonna get. The motherfucker has to make you laugh. And if they don't make you laugh, they ain't gonna get no work no more because they're not funny. With poets, you don't know what you're gonna get. You may get a poet who's socially conscious, who's pro-Black, who's LGBT, who is sad all the time. Whatever the fuck it is, you don't know. So when you say, here's a poet, there's this reluctance to kind of just open the door and just allow shit to take place because you don't know what you're going to get. And so that process was a great process. And then when it was on Broadway, I used to be brought in to give feedback on the show. So I'd have to watch the show and then give the poets feedback on what they did and what the writings were and the poems were and blah, blah, blah. And I just, after a while, was like, they need to figure out a way to rebrand what poetry is. Because there's this idea that you can't make it as a poet if you're doing poetry, because there's no real mechanism in place to kind of push a poet forward. But the thing I always bring up when I used to hear that was, yo, you know Arista Records, because they were in the music industry. So I'm like, you know where Arista Records is? You know who Clive Davis is, right? I go, the first platinum album on Arista Records, the album that allowed that record label to continue to exist, was Gil Scott-Heron's album. It sold 1 million copies, and the money from that album bankrolled that entire company. Now, you'd be hard pressed to find a major label giving a poet an opportunity to have a record out. You know, even Black Ice, he did a poetry album. They were like, oh, we don't know. The dude like some hip hop shit. And then the niggas rapping, and then they just shelve it because they don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And so there's a, you know, this is branding shit right now, right? Everyone's always about this brand. I saw someone post it, and I'm barely online like anymore. But I went on and I saw someone put like, what's your brand? And when did you recognize your brand? And something, I don't remember. It was some shit like that. And I said, the only thing I'll say about it is the only positive to me about having a brand is knowing when you're not on your brand, right? Because if you are a motherfucker who's a father and a husband and a loyal this and brother and blah, 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 and I'm trying to fuck somebody after the show, I'm not on my brand. I'm fucking up. So it keeps me accountable to the shit I'm trying to sell. So if you're trying to sell art, which again, I have a kind of back and forth kind of thing with, you got to decide what that is, you know? And so, wait, hold up. Where are we at? I'm looking at questions and shit. Sorry, I just looked at the chat. I'm like, I noticed some shit do like this. So I was like, oh, I don't have no problem with leaving Broadway. I'm good on Broadway. Let's see, what else? What do you mean not being an asshole when you write it? Oh, to assume motherfuckers understand what it is. I can't assume people know shit at all. Whether it's people that all live in my neighborhood or motherfuckers from different spots, because it's like this. It's like my one of my friends, his family's like super strict ass Nigerian, like super, like the judgmental ass, the most judgmental you could be people. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, when I first met them, I didn't know where they were from, right? So I'm da-da-da-da-da, and they're like, I'm like, and they just made me feel like shit. And I go, that's poetry. That's poetry. That's the poetry scene, right? I get up and I talk about shit that's going on. They don't know what the fuck that means. I remember when Lemonade came out, right? I remember a conversation. They were like, yo, this is like Black feminism and womanhood and blah, 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 and blah, 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 the Blackest this and this and this. And I said, 7 of the 10 songs on that album were written by white men and a couple white women. So if white men and white women write your feminism, does that make it Black feminism? Is that how we qualify what something is? Because just because she's saying that shit, right? So
talk your shit.
But again, the assumption is I just take what is and go with it. And I've never been like that. And being an asshole is something I can't afford to be in my writing, because I believe being an artist and creation is the closest I can get to God, right? Because I believe God's woman, right? So I believe like the closest I can get to creation, like really creating something, giving something life, is through my art. So though that all plays into how I look at everything I do, right? So I cannot be the full ass asshole because I don't know what will affect anybody. But again, I'm asshole on both sides of the spectrum. I'm big on, there's like this lot of poets, younger generations on this whole trigger shit, like the trigger warning and a safe space and the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, a trigger warning, I'm against. I run a venue, I'm against trigger warnings. And the reason is,
oh my God, I have a whole poem that I wrote in Coda called Trigger Warning. That's anti-trigger warning.
yeah, because a
And it's
trigger
great
warning
too,
aren't
by the
necessarily
way.
just words.
I
Like,
hate trigger warning.
You know what I'm saying? The cologne that someone's wearing could be the trigger to something. So I'm like, me saying don't fucking do this is bullshit. Just like, and let me get off of that because I'll go on forever about that shit. So let's see. Am I a full-time performer and writer? I would say writer, yes. Performer, no. Writer, yes. Performer, no. I just had a conversation with my wife about this. I was asked how much time I perform against the time I don't have to perform for work, right? Performing for work and to make money, again, percentages of which I do for work and how much I don't perform for. And I realized in 2020, and not just because of COVID, I performed twice the entire year. That was it. And I was good. Last year was one of my most successful years since like the teens of the 20s, or like the teens of the 2000s. And so I feel like my job is more important as a writer and to continue writing and to still find ways to be inspired, which again, you're not in control of inspiration. You don't know where inspiration comes from. It can come from anywhere. The job is to be open to it when it shows up, right? So, so I'm like, I write all the time. I've pushed myself to write beyond the shit that I was writing. And I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to tell stories in ways that also keep me hyped about my writing. Where a lot of writer's block and shit like that can come from, because you're just sitting there like, damn, I'm just saying the same shit in different ways. But could I write this poem for a kindergartner? Could I write this poem for someone in high school? Could I perform this for an old motherfucker who never seen a Black person in their life? And that, to me, that pushed me to try and figure things out. So I was always trying to figure shit out. That's kind of how my path has kind of gone, where I felt like I always wanted to push. I remember, this is a random wraparound. When Def Comedy was still around, my mentor, which I'll get into that, the importance of having mentors and someone that you can go to. Her name is Ronnie Walters. I always big up Ronnie as the woman who basically gave me the tools necessary to actually think this is a possibility. Auditions at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. And Ronnie calls me up and goes, we should go down and audition. And I'm like, I'm with you, Ronnie. Whatever you want, I'm 100% down with Ronnie. So we get on the bus, we go out to fucking Sunset Boulevard, we stand in line, she's in front of me, we get to the front, they call her up, she starts. One day, and a year and a half later, Stan showed up at the lounge and said, we're gonna do a show called Def Poetry. You wanna be involved? And I was like, there it was. And, having a mentor is important. Having someone you could trust to be honest with criticism is important, because a lot of people, a lot of friends will be like, yo, that shit's dope. Because it's something they don't do necessarily. Sometimes you have friends, they'll be like, it's dope. And you're like, it's actually not dope. And I actually need you to tell me when it's not. So find a circle that's worth keeping, right? Because everything ain't dope. Your friends, your true friends' job shouldn't be just to gas you up. It should be to critique you when it's time to be critiqued. And I feel like I've been lucky enough where I have friends who are like, stuff like that. So again, a wrap back to Def Poetry. When I went on Def Poetry, because it was the first time poetry was going to be on television, I was getting my shot. I was all about proving how dope of a poet I was. I was like, I'm gonna drop the deepest shit they ever heard. My mind, like literally, I was like, oh, I'm about to fuck this shit up. I was going over shit in my head. And I get up on stage and I do my first, so you perform 2 poems and they air 1. So I get up and I do my first poem and it's my deep shit. And I'm like, and I finish my shit. And I look out and I'm like, I think there's something else, you know? And my friend Poetry and another poet named InQ are sitting in the back, 2 of my closest friends to this day. And they go, do the love poem. And I wind up doing Love Light. And that became the biggest poem that show had. And
that's the one.
Wind up being, you know.
Corban, is that the one you quoted? No, somebody else quoted that.
Yeah, he just put it in here. I want to Love Light.
Oh, Justin.
Yes,
Justin did. Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, that was exactly what it was. And so I did that poem. I finished, and I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm from New York. I still my Knicks hat. Well, this is my Giants, but I'm a Knicks fan. And Patrick Ewing was in the front row, right? And I'm a diehard Knicks fan. He may not mean shit to y'all, but it meant a lot. And Patrick Ewing was sitting there. John Starks was sitting there. My sister was there. My aunt was there. My brother was there. My father was there. Like everyone. That was the first time my family had been there and seen me in one room do what I do. My childhood friends, everything, right? I get off stage, I'm saying bye to everybody outside, and the PA comes over and goes, do you have a quick second? I go, yeah, let me just say bye to everybody. And she goes, Patrick Ewing is in the lobby, he wants to talk to you. And I was like, oh shit! And I went inside, and Patrick Ewing was standing there, and he's like, you made me cry. And I was like, oh shit, nigga, I made Patrick Ewing cry. I was so fucking excited. And I was so excited. To try and experience and do things, and sometimes in the moment. Like if I would have never did Love Like, I don't know how things would have been different. If I would have never went with Ronnie to the Def Comedy Jam auditions, I don't know how things would have turned out. If I never wasn't allowed to get in that club and went into the juke joint and met Dante and Poetry that night in '94, how would life have been different? Like, so sometimes you kind of just gotta let yourself be what it is. Even though you should have a plan, your plan should be open to changes and adjustments to it, right? So, John Henry Clark used to say, oh fuck, let's see if I remember this fucking quote. There's a difference between tact and strategy, right? Strategy.
Come on, Corban, what was the quote?
Oh, fuck, I'm gonna fuck it up.
Come on, Corban, what's the quote? I know you know it.
I literally thought that just now. I was like, I'm gonna ask Corban what it is.
What's the quote? I missed it. I was typing my question.
It's a John Henry Clark quote about the difference between strategy and tactics, and how one is, if you stick to one, it fucks things up. Strategy can be adjusted. Like tactic is just a plan, but there should be and so I believe in that. I believe as an artist, you should have that. So when do you retire? Oh, shit.
I want to interrupt.
I retire poems.
Hold on. I want to interrupt right there too, because we talk. So on Tuesdays we do business. Tuesday we do a writing workshop. On Thursdays we do a business workshop. So on Thursdays I had them send in their schedules to me so I can look at it, because I talked about that. I did not know that quote, but that's how I live my life. Is that I have what I call a skeleton plan, which is what I have to do today. But this might come up. I have to be able to be flexible enough to be like, oh, like I've been Starry, I just DM'd, not Starry, but Miss Jolie and Nora. They've been waiting on cookies for me for like a week, but I didn't have my correct packaging. And who knows if we talk about being branding, like all of that, right? Who knows if they share a cookie with somebody when I can't just assume that they're gonna eat all the cookies by themselves. So I had to wait till the correct packaging gets here, go get it, put them on there, put them in the mail, send them their tracking numbers, all of that. So it's like you can have a plan for the day or for your life. And I thought that was my phone.
Yeah, Sheba, you cut out. So we heard something about you getting some cookies from Miss Jolie, and then that was it.
Yeah, for Miss Jolie and for Noura, they've been waiting on cookies for me for about a week, right? But I've waited for my packaging to come in because I'm not sure if they're going to share their cookies with their friends, right? And if my information or my brand isn't on my cookies, they just giving away cookies in a regular package. They're like, oh, these are good, but we don't know where to get them from, right? So I talk about that in the business course, that the branding is important, staying on your brand is important, making sure that whatever you send out is up to your standard, whatever your production standard is, and then being flexible enough to have your skeletal schedule, that's what I call it. And then, because I didn't know that quote, but that's perfect. That's exactly how I live my life. I don't even plan out more than 6 months because I think that's arrogant, but some people are like, oh, I have a 5-year plan. Yeah, sure. I know what I kind of want to be doing in 5 years, but I also have to be flexible for life and things happening and whatever, traveling. And then, good things happening that you don't even know are in your plan yet, right? That might change the trajectory of your life. So we talked about that on Thursday.
Yeah, it's always good to have a target of where you're going.
Target is right. A target is good. Having a skeleton plan and then being flexible to go with the flow and vinyasa. So I'm glad you talked about that.
Real quick answer to one of the questions. Am I tired of performing? I don't perform Love Like anymore unless it's like an anniversary or some shit. Like, not my anniversary. I'm talking about like, it's the 25th year of the lounge. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to do Love Like. It's been a long time. But asking if I'd ever change it, I did. Because the first time I did it was one of the nights I met my wife. And I was single at the time. So I said, but I'm single, so I guess something. I don't remember what the fuck I said, but it was something like that. And then obviously I got married. I was like, oh, I'm married. It's different now. So that's the only change. I normally do not go back and re-edit poems when I feel they're done. And the reason is those are time capsules to me. Those are moments that existed and I experienced in that space. So why would I fuck it up with my new hindsight vision and try and change what that moment was? So I
have a question on that. So in one of my signature poems, We Are the Women, right? Like that's 2 questions I got about that. So one, I also get kind of quote unquote tired of that, but that's also arrogant too, because that's only me listening to it that many times, depending on where I've done it. But that's not saying like the lounge changes. Like you get 100 new people every week. So you technically could do Love Like forever every week. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be 100 new people that hear it every week forever, right? But I totally get it. But so I kind of only do We Are the Women just really when it's appropriate or when people ask for it or something. But the other thing is in We Are the Women, I say Blackberry. So I say Blackberry something, something, something. And like, I say Blackberry in my space. And then so T Miller was like, have you thought about updating that to like TikTok or like, and so part of me, sometimes when I'm in the mood, I'll stop in the middle of the poem and make a joke and be like, and purposely make the same joke over and over again, right? So if you see me do it more than twice, you're like, oh, but I'll stop and be like, I guess I should update this. And I'll update it, quote unquote, while in the performance, right? And then other times I'll just be like, fuck it, and I'll just let it go. Because again, it is kind of like saying, this is how dope this fucking poem was, that I wrote this shit in 2006 and it still hits. Fuck with me. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. It's like that time capsule too. It's like, write things that are going to be classic. You can write, the timeless, the classics, and then of course, things that are pop culture as well.
And that's the thing. That's the thing also about writing. So in regards to craft in general, when you tie a time to it, that also like keeps your poem in that time. And so when that time passes, sometimes those poems no longer have relevance. And that's something that I feel was important. Like I'd have to think. I don't know how many poems I have a date in. Like in 2006, I didn't like. I don't think I had them shits because
like for the 99 and the 2000.
Yeah. Because if we're being 100, 99 was my year. Nigga, that don't sound cool now. I'll be like, 99 is my year in 2021. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, but I think you should have poems that can exist in any time. I think not all your poems, because I think there are moments that exist for that time. But I do think your writing should kind of, it should be markers in your life, those moments in your life that stand out. But also, I think the long-standing writers and the legacy writers, when I think of Maya Angelou, Zora Neale Hurston, Nikki Giovanni, you know, those things exist at any time, in any time, and they're still relevant and resonate in any time. And to me, that's dope as fuck, because there's a bunch of poets like, and I don't even like constantly bringing the deaf poetry, because I feel like it did, in hindsight, I felt like it may have done more harm for things than not, because I think it oversimplified what the craft was, and because it kind of came up at the same time that reality TV and like shit started to kind of happen, people just validated being on TV with being good or being a quality artist. And so people who sat at home were like, that's poetry, I could do that shit. And no, you can't. And that's the fucked up thing that I think deaf poetry kind of did. So, which is another story. So yeah, I think, I'm trying to think what other things. Oh, as a performer, you should have a timeline. So that strategy and that whole thing, the 5-year plan, whatever your plan is, I think you should have a timeline kind of set. Like how long, if it is performance-based, how long do you plan to perform? Like how, like, you know, like recognizing that life as a performance poet is work. That's a lot of work. That getting on planes, flying around the country, being in the car, however you plan to do it, is a lot of time, and that shit is draining. And I do feel like you can start your path at any point in your life, but you should also kind of have it, unless you're the person who just wants to perform forever and you love that part of it. But I feel like I got my fix of that, because at the times we had this thing called the bug, right? And you see a new poet come and they never perform in front of that people, 250 people, and they're like, and they feel it. And then they come back again, and you're like, this nigga do the same poem again. And then they do the same poem, and they're addicted to that thing. And it's like, I don't want to be that poet. I don't want to be that poet. So, and that was the other thing. Don't be that poet. Don't be the poet that every time you come and get up on stage, they know your shit. They know what you're gonna do. And that was something that was a real, that was a real, I don't know how else to say this shit. That's a real thing. I think I have lived and traveled enough to notice how many people fell in love with the limelight and not realize that that spotlight don't follow you everywhere you go. And as an artist, you have a job to figure out how to maintain that spotlight if you're trying to be a performer. Like, I'm not trying to perform all the time, because again, I feel like I was lucky to a certain extent. I was ready, I was prepared as fuck, but I was lucky. I got my career in place early. I found my best friend, my wife, early. We had our family early. And then I traveled and did all that shit early. So I got that out of my system. So then I was like, well, what is there to conquer next, right? So, you know, part of my trajectory, you know, there was always like a ceiling for poets. There was always a ceiling. When I got in, it was like, do slam, because there was nothing else at the time. It was like slam, maybe Showtime at the Apollo, but slam, really. And to me, I don't see anything wrong with slam. I think slam is an exercise in writing, because it gives you parameters to run with, which a normal open mic or yourself doesn't do. So I'm cool with slam. I don't think being a lifelong slammer is the jam at all, but it worked. And then after that, it was like, maybe you do the college market, right? And again, that people were uncomfortable hiring poets. So what I did was I was like, I got to figure out how to work. So I went on, and there was a website called Univ Source. I don't even know if it still exists. UNIV Source, univsource.com. And basically it was a map of the United States. And on each state, if you clicked on it, it would give you the websites for all the states and colleges in that, colleges and universities in that state. And I went through the entire map. I clicked on each college and university. I looked up the Black Student Union, Performance Studies Department, Creative Writing Department. I found all the contacts, and I created my list. And I started sending shit out to get work. And that's how I started doing work and getting out on the road. And that was kind of my thing. And then I was like, I don't want to do this.
But didn't you started, I put the NACA and APCA website. You don't have to go into that. I can tell about that. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. But sure. They can look it up later. But didn't you had a booth? Because I remember I was at NACA. Yeah, I was at APTA South and you weren't there. Like the booth was blank, or like maybe you came the next day or something like that. Because I remember wanting to join y'all because I hadn't done any West Coast colleges. I had only done the Southeast, which was yeah, which is cool. Do you think that method still works now? Because I would do that shit now again.
I think it still works because look, you can't teach hustle. You can't. You have that in you. Passion, being driven, those things are inherent in people. Like you could teach people like, you know, certain strategies and tactics to approach things, but I think passion is something you cannot teach. I think you can teach compartmentalization, which I think is important to learn as an artist, to separate yourself from sometimes maybe hearing too much criticism and kind of getting on yourself and letting that affect what you put out. But I think compartmentalization is super important as an artist. I think you have to be able to wear different hats. You know, I'm in different places now. I'm in a different place now than I was at 25. I'm in a different place than I was at 35. You know what I'm saying? And
how old were you when you used to? Oh, you said you're a young teenager. I think I started at 25, but Brave New Voices wasn't around anyway. But I think I was at Bank of America and I was 25 when I either 24 turning 25 when I got fired. And I was just like, fuck it, I'm out here now. And literally, and that was it. I was just like, fuck it, I'm out here now. But then again, you know, gas was 99 cents. Gas isn't too bad now. But it was a good time to be fired. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. So I had a line, I used to have a line. Damn, I feel like, damn, that shit is old. I had a thing where I said, I'm sick of working at Starbucks for less than Starbucks, right? I got a job at Starbucks because they had a 4 morning shift. So I could open the store and then I'd be out by 11 or 12 or whatever. And I had my entire day to go to open mics, to write, to da-da-da-da-da. I don't drink coffee. So I hated walking out there and smelling and shit. And the job, this is my most random fucking story. And then I will open, I want to have questions if possible. My most random story. I worked at Starbucks and I'm sitting there and this lady comes up to me and she goes, when do you get off your shift? Because my husband wants to talk to you. I look and there's a dude in a beret and he's looking at me, he's like this. And I'm like, I get off in like a half hour. And she goes, okay, well, he's gonna wait. He wants to talk to you, right? And I sit down with him after go, yeah, your wife said you wanted to talk to me. Your wife, sorry, what?
What'd you say, Corbin?
I was saying unicorn story.
Oh yeah, these are those stories. So I sit down and he goes, I really like your look. Would you mind doing a photo shoot? And I'm like, what kind of photo shoot? And he's like, don't worry, you don't have to take your clothes off. It'll be fine. And I'm like,
it'll be fine.
I go, how much? And then he goes, it's $2,500 for 3 hours. And I'm like, yup. Yup. And at the time, Dante and I lived together. And so I go, dude, I just got this fucking job. So I go out and it's out in Marina Del Rey. And it's like a warehouse looking kind of place. They have those like industrial looking buildings, you know, all over the place, right? So it's one of those. And I go inside and I walk in and they're like, oh, we weren't sure if you were going to show up. So people, you know, the photographer's over there, da, da, da. And I walk in and there's a dude in a tuxedo. This is my favorite, this is my favorite shit. This is one of my favorite stories in the world. I walk in, there's a dude in a tuxedo tied, like full on hands tied behind his back on a beam, right? Like a beam. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, hey man, like that. And they go, let's take you over to wardrobe. And we go to wardrobe and there's a lady in a barber's chair, in a salon chair. And she's wearing like a veil and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like she's gonna get married, right? So you know, she's wearing that shit. And they go, this is SHIHAN. And she turns around and she's wearing, like I said, she's wearing a full ass fucking thing. And she's naked.
A veil and naked.
Naked, that's it, just a veil. And I'm like
naked, no underwear naked?
No underwear naked. And I'm like, what the fuck? And she goes, oh, this is gonna be fun. And I'm like, wait a second, what the fuck is going on here? And so I go to the photographer and he goes, look, don't worry, it can definitely mess with you. Don't worry, you're not gonna have to take clothes off. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So he gives me a camera, like this 8mm camera, like old school, and he goes, just pretend you're filming. Just pretend you're filming. And I'm like, what? So I go out there and
Wait a minute,
she's
did he
like,
pay you before you got there or after?
no, literally right when I ended, he gave me the money.
Okay. Oh,
I
Lord.
do this thing, right? I do this and I'm like fake pretending I'm shooting stuff. It's super weird, right? He gives me my money, gives me a copy of a picture, and I still have the picture. My wife hates this picture. So I go home and they go, what was it? And I go, I don't know, this girl named Jenna Jameson. Wait, I don't know that shit because I'm not into that, you know, I'm not into that shit. So I'm like, Jenna, and Dante goes, you don't know Jenna Jameson? And I'm like, I have no the fuck idea at all. And all the brothers, everyone who lived in the house was like, what? You should go back. And I'm like, I ain't going back over there. The shit was weird already. But the purpose of that is I took that money.
He was the one in the veil?
Yeah, she was the one in the veil. I used that money to pay for 3 months of rent. I paid my phone bill for 3 months and my lights for 3 months. And I quit my job at Starbucks. And I put it on myself. How am I going to figure out how to make my art work for me? And that was the launch. So that random ass thing that happened actually kickstarted me and jumped me into trying to figure out how to do things. And so from that point on, I've lived as an artist since that point. I haven't had a job since then.
That's so dope. You should DM her and be like, guess what? Guess what you started? That's so great. That's an awesome story. It's been almost an hour.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Because I feel like I'm not sure. It's up to y'all.
So wait, so is you said that somebody said put him on the list as SHIHAN. So SHIHAN is not your name?
Yeah, SHIHAN's my name.
Oh. You said it like he made something.
Oh, no, yeah, no. He's like, his name's SHIHAN, like that.
Oh, I thought he was saying it to almost protect you, like in case you didn't want to do it anymore because it was your first one. Like, sign him up as Big Bird, and just in case.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. I was like, wait a minute.
So yeah. So I think
What is
Corban said
your Cash App?
Oh, what the fuck? You know what?
Do you have a Cash App?
That's a great question. Because I don't know. Let's see. I don't even know. Oh shit. That's how long it's been. Let's see. I'm telling you, I don't be looking at shit at all. Oh, it's I'll put it in right now.
Yeah, put it in there. So everybody get out your phone. You requested him. So everybody get out your phone and Cash App SHIHAN something. I don't care what you Cash App him. Y'all know I give our part of Tuesdays. Part of your tuition goes to our speaker. So he is getting a little something from me. But y'all said get SHIHAN. So get out your phones right now, everybody, and Cash App. I don't see you moving, Jay Catrice. And Justin, Nora, Corban. I don't care if it's $1 or whatever.
I'm gonna hit him on the app, but I got a couple questions though.
Yeah, I want to hear the questions, please. Please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you could talk about balancing, making a career out of poetry, the creative process, and having a family as far as opportunities for poets.
So in the balance, in finding balance between art and family, the thing is, for me personally, was I worked, again, I feel like I was blessed. I was very lucky. My wife is an artist. She's a social worker now, but when I met her, she was MC, she was an artist. And so she understood the art life. So she understood if I needed time. But what I did, and this is something I did, especially when we had our first child, when my daughter was born, I used to write at night. My day would be spent taking care of family and doing all the stuff I needed to do, keep those responsibilities going. And at night I would write. I literally would sit in my bathroom. I would close the door. I would put a towel under so that the light didn't shine underneath the and interrupt the baby or my wife. And I would write. I would sit on the floor in my bathroom and I would write. And that became the way I still was able to give time to my writing while making sure my family had the time that was necessary when it was time for that. And then on the road, I decided early, and again, I feel lucky. I feel lucky I was given those opportunities. I recognized I went on the road for like 2 weeks straight once, and I came back, and my daughter asked me if I still loved her, and that fucked me up. And I was like, I'm not gonna go for long periods on the road ever again like that. And it made me start trying to figure out how to make it a possibility that I could take my family with me on the road also. And so I would start negotiating where I take my family, especially at that point, it was just my wife and my daughter. And I took my wife to Paris and Tokyo with my daughter because I wanted to not have to be away from them for that long a period of time. But I think it's a conversation you have with your family and the people you love, and let them know. And I think they could also see it. If you're passionate about it, I think it's something they can see. It's something you're serious about and that you want to pursue. And so the conversation shouldn't be as serious, but I do think there should be something in you that also says, oh, that's too much time to spend away. Like I could do like a 5-day thing. I did 5 days at a time. And then I went through a phase where it was 2 days at the most at all. I was just like, I can't be gone that long. And as they got older, because they can understand things as they get older. When they're little kids, they don't understand concepts, which is, again, a weird fucking tangent, but like with religion shit, I remember going to a church once and there was a kid screaming, a little kid about 4 or 5 years old screaming. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why is the baby screaming? And they're like, because he thinks he's really drinking the blood of Christ. And I'm like, because they don't understand concepts. They don't. The concepts, those concepts don't make sense to the little kids. And so again, saying I love you, but then leaving, that's not an easily understandable concept. Like, why they love me and they care, why do they keep leaving? Even if they come back and it feels great, why? And then as far as where I feel where poetry is now, I think there's 2 things going on in the poetry scene. I think there's a lot of opportunity right now, which is great to see, that people finally giving chances and taking the chance on poets being able to do anything that any other artist can do, right? Let them do it all now. So there's that going on, but then there's also, which went on with that poetry, where motherfuckers take themselves a little too serious. And not that you can't take yourself serious, but I think, look, there's a lot of poets out right now that when I see perform, I'm like, oh, you're just the now, you're the now version. You're Talam 27.0.
You know,
I've seen that already. You know what I mean?
Somebody
Sorry, go ahead.
said this one time as an introduction to me, and I caught it on tape and ended up putting it on my album, and I didn't even understand what they were saying until later. But they were saying some of the people or women who've come after me don't even understand why they're doing what they're doing, but it's coming from me, but really came from Jessica, who really came from Nikki, who really came from Sonia, who really came from Zornil Hurston, who really came from blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So it's that trickle down effect where they don't even realize, like I kind of do poems to kind of the side of my mouth when I'm talking shit, and I watch women do that now on stage, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, what is that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I think it's a lack of understanding also, to go back to him, that I think it's important to kind of be open to the criticism of what it is. Like, I feel like people think they're all unique and original, and it's like, yo, dude, the language, I feel like a lot of poetry use the same language now. There's a lot of the same, like I hear the black body, and I'm like, yo, nigga, if I hear the black, and not that it's not real, but if I hear another, the black body is.
If I hear one more, and I'm gonna write a poem about this, so, and I teach them, whatever your problem is your problem. You gotta provide a solution, whatever the solution is. And I tell them all the time, the solution can be your real, or it can be dragons flying down the street, whatever the solution is. Like, don't just come talking shit, like you said earlier, talking shit with no solution, because you're like, this is the problem, da, 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 da. So if I hear one more letter to my unborn child, or one more, oh, I only grew up with my daddy, which I know is a real thing, which I'm gonna address in my poem, right? I know it's a real thing, I understand it. But my take on it is, y'all are selfish, self-centered motherfuckers, because I don't have neither one of my parents. So then what the fuck you gonna do? Right. You're gonna be grateful for the mother that you got, you're gonna still keep talking shit.
Right.
So my writing process is interesting. I know where I want to start, and I let it burn, which I call burn, until I know where I want it to end. And then the middle comes from God.
So I don't know. Justin, I feel like I may have answered. Did I answer the second one as clear? I feel like maybe not.
Yeah, no, it was clear. It was clear. I think, but are you still like you felt very strongly about keeping poetry like kind of like a pure, the way you approach, what's his name, like Jamie Foxx.
You know what? In that way,
it just seemed like if you still had that take on it.
So, yes and no.
Yes.
Right? I remember yes and no. And I'll tell you why.
Yes, because we don't think about how many venues, how many genres we don't get to go in, Justin.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yes.
We can't, they don't accept us. They might accept us in the hip hop venue now, right? But we can't go in on jam session night and do a poem and stop the whole band. We can't go in on comedy night unless it's like a small ass comedy night, it's an open mic and you do a funny poem. Right?
Right.
But they're not just gonna let you get up there and bullshit.
As the host.
Right, exactly. Unless you got it in. But people always feel like, oh, it's just poetry. We could do whatever the fuck we want on this night.
Yeah, no, I'm still purist in that sense. I don't like that shit at all. And that's something that, again, I'll just make this a quick thing, that I learned early, again, but I didn't implement it until later, that people were paying me to hear my story, right? To see my story and hear it. And as I got older and I started transitioning into consulting for companies, for different artists, for whatever, I realized that I need to maintain that in those other spaces, right? So when I go into a meeting now and I go and I'm meeting with some corporate motherfuckers, like I did a campaign for Under Armour, right? And I got brought in as a fixer. That was my job, to come in as a fixer. And the campaign was the largest campaign ever done by Under Armour. And it was led by women because people had found out that the dude who ran Under Armour had supported Trump or whatever. So there was this big thing to like fix the optics of it, right? So they did a poetry-based campaign. 5 women, 5 poets. And the person who led it off was Saul Williams. Now, Saul is my friend. When I got brought into that campaign and they showed me the stuff, and they turned on the lights, they're like, what did you think? I go, who the fuck greenlit that? That was what I said in the meeting with executives from fucking Under Armour, from the advertising agency, from that. I go, who fucking greenlit that? And they go, why? I go, it's a woman. Misty Copeland is dancing and Saul Williams is reading a poem in first person about being as a woman. Fuck that. You should have, they're like, well, we couldn't really, he was the person that came to mind. I'm like, that's great he came to mind. The reality is you could have asked him for a woman to write that fucking poem and to be the voice of the campaign. Why is a guy being the voice of the women-led campaign? And they literally were like up in the air, and I kept on. But that's what they paid me for. I got brought in to tell them what the fuck was wrong. And again, that part of me that's passionate about.
Oh, I need that job. That's me. Oh, that's me.
You recognize what that reasoning is. And I go places. I just came back from a gig where I had to fly to Vegas, and it's like and they wanted to teach people in Saudi Arabia, men in Saudi Arabia, how to fly planes, right? And because of the social climate and laws and shit, they sent this white lady over there. And so she's talking fucked up to these brown dudes. And I'm like, nah, I'm cool on that shit. Like, first of all, I don't care about a 35-year-old motherfucker getting his license. I'd rather see black kids or kids of color, because black kids and people of color are different to me. I'd rather see them get that opportunity because those opportunities don't come across them on a regular basis. And so they were like, well, and I go, I don't want no white fucking savior saving the kids and saving their lives. And that's not the fucking world. And I know that's why I'm being brought in. And I feel very comfortable in that space to take the hit. If I take the hit, I remember Whoopi Goldberg was on this thing called The Blacklist, and they were talking about Step and Fetch It and all this fucked up, that era. And she goes, you know what? She goes, you ever seen those old Tarzan movies? And it's like the white hunters, and they go into the jungle, and they got the little black dude, and they go out and see if it's safe. And they go, the fucking little guy goes out, and they kill that motherfucker. Some always has to be that. The sacrifice, the person that goes out there. And I feel very comfortable because I had to deal with it early with the whole death poetry where people are like, oh, that nigga didn't put me on the show. I dealt with that for so long that I'm comfortable having that come at me. So I go in every space that I can. And when I'm given those opportunities and I speak my shit. I'm very pro-Black in how I think, how I feel, what I want them to get from my conversation with them, so that everything they see is consistent. Because I'm super consistent. I believe consistency is the biggest thing lacking from Black social structure and social structure as a whole. And that's why shit's so fucked up, because people are comfortable with half-ass to a point where you're like, yo, shit's fucked up because you're cool with shit being like okie-dokie. You know what I'm saying? I don't play that at all.
Oh my
So
God.
I'm very consistent on that.
You're gonna open up our next session, our next summer, fall. I'm glad this is being recorded. This is awesome. So I'm gonna tell you.
Is there anyone else who has a question? Just because I know
I got a tab on your consistency. I want to what's the word I'm looking for? I want to agree with. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. I want to yes to his consistency. So this one time, where the fuck were we at? We were not in LA and we were not in Atlanta. And y'all had just did a deaf poetry show. And SHIHAN said to me, you saw me after the show, you know, he's consistent. He's a real friend. He was like, hey, Shiva, thanks for coming to the show. Fuck, where were we at? And he said, where are y'all going after the show? And it was to some restaurant like Denny's or something. It wasn't LA though. I know where the fuck we were.
I think it's Chicago.
Chicago. Yes. And so he said, where are you going? Like, you know, after the show, and it was something like a Denny's or whatever. It was just like a late night breakfast spot. It was a diner. And he was like, okay, I'll meet you there. And then kind of went about his business. And in my mind, and this was all me, this was not SHIHAN, right? I was like, this nigga ain't coming, right? That's what I just thought. I was like, this nigga ain't coming. So I think I was with like 4 people. So I get there and they were like, how many? What'd you say?
I have that picture of us.
Oh, yeah. And so then he goes, so I was like, and so I get there and the host was like, how many? I was like 4. Because remember, they were wrapping up their show. So he probably came, maybe not even that much longer. It was like 30 minutes later and he had like another few people with him. And he was like, you didn't think I was coming? And I was like, I just remember feeling stuck and stupid. Like, fuck, no, I didn't. I just remember thinking like, shit, but why didn't I? Right? We had already been friends. I don't know what the fuck I thought. That was just a moment, I guess, of low self-esteem or unsurety. I was like, oh, these niggas on Broadway, they ain't coming to have breakfast with me. That's, you know, it's that, oh, they're on Broadway, I'm coming to see my friends, even though I knew that I was coming to see my friends. Does that make sense? It was weird. But then I was like, oh, they're not gonna come sit with me. But they all came and it was like, you at the table by yourself? Like, not by yourself, but like, you didn't say table for 10? And I was like, oh, and then it couldn't even be fixed. That's how much it haunts me, because it wasn't like, oh, let's scoot it. Nah, they had to sit like somewhere else because the restaurant was crowded. You remember that shit?
Yeah, I do remember it. I have a picture of that day.
Yeah.
Us eating.
And I remember thinking like, no, fuck, you're worthy. Like, you know, so the whole mentorship thing, like if it, and him being consistent and people who show you who they are, believe them, because fuck it, why not? You're worth, y'all are amazing. You've already done steps to be on here. Y'all rocked with me, especially the veterans, from my fucking living room to Gallery 992 to being on here with a whole curriculum and shit. Corbain fucking called me out on it. Was like, which she had a very right to do. She was like, yo, I've invested in myself and I didn't get my curriculum last week. So, I was like, my bad. I was busy, but that don't mean shit.
No, I just didn't want to be
No. But it was still like, it still was on me. Like, no, okay, you know, yeah, Sheba, you busy doing shit, but you got it, you know, you here. So, but you know, y'all know me to be reliable, so it was cool. It was fun. But
I saw your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned that you were against the celebrities coming on the show. So like you didn't like none of them?
No, not that I didn't like them. I was more offended that they felt poets couldn't hold up that show, considering it was called Deaf Poetry, but they felt like they needed to have that. Because I remember, and again, there were people on there I liked. And I have, you know, obviously I was there for every single taping, so I had to be there. I had to be there for everything.
Yeah, because I was like, gonna say DMX was nice. I like the industry.
Yo, I got video of DMX after that show where I asked them, yo, can you tell me what the importance of spoken word is? Because you know you do poems and your album, you have your prayers and blah, blah, blah. And I gotta find that shit because it's still one of my favorite shit. He's like, all right, hold up. And we in the little in the background, he's like, spoken word is the something, da 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 da. damn, I'm good, and then walks away. And I was like, what the fuck was that shit? Like, that shit was fantastic. There were people who were cool. Look, here, I'll give you an example. A lot of people goofed on Alicia Keys being on there. You know what I appreciate about Alicia Keys? She didn't take the easy route and sing a song. She could have easily done it. People would have just been like, oh shit, she did a poem. You know, even though she had all the random like set she tried to build, she still went for it. You know what I'm saying? Even Kanye, like, they look at it now.
Yeah, Kanye
looking in hindsight,
turned into gold digger.
but here's the thing, that wasn't out at the time, at all. That didn't come out for like
way later.
So he auditioned to be on Def Poetry. He came, Stan said, yo, we got a list of people. We have like 5-6 people coming to the office. Would you mind sitting in? And we sat there and he walked in. He was not Kanye nothing at that point. He was just Kanye West, like new dude. Because even in the introduction.
What year was that?
He was Kanye Louis Vuitton Don.
So listen, no bullshit. And I don't even know how. In 2003, Kanye opened for me in Miami.
Whoa.
Yeah, he was giving his demo tape out because
he gave me
still
through
wasn't
the
fucking
wire.
with it.
He
And
gave me
he
through
was
the
like,
wire.
I really love the opportunity to kind of show what I can do. Da 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 da.
And
so
he didn't have any swag then. He was not Kanye. He was very.
And he was with his mom. He was with his mom. He was super chill. And I was like, yo, it'd be really dope for you to have a poet on something you do. And he goes, I'm actually thinking about having Jay Ivy on this shit with Jay-Z. I think it's gonna be fly. And then fucking almost 2 years later, that shit came out. But the story that goes with that is the fucked up part about that song being on that album is when they did that review for that album, every single review for the Kanye album said Kanye West and Saul Williams and Jay-Z. Every single album review said that. And then they did the recant the next thing and said, oh, it was Jay Ivy. And that's a disservice to Jay Ivy for fucking doing that and being part of that shit and that not being handled because, again, people being lazy with poets because they assume poets are going to be comfortable with half-ass because, again, you get pay a poet, you know, some fucking peanuts and they're like, oh, thank you for some peanuts, nigga. And they just feel like you can find poets everywhere. You throw rocks, nigga, there's a poet somewhere and that's a fucked up thing. That's a fucked up thing. So, yeah.
Yesterday, today is Tuesday. Yesterday, as y'all know me right now, somebody who's been a promoter in Jacksonville for forever, hit me up and was like, I want to give you $500 in a hotel to come and perform August 22nd. I said, okay. And I fly on Delta. And she was like, well, I don't know. I said, I'm not going to walk. So, I mean, and I'm not driving, bitch. What's wrong with you? She said, well, I'll hit you back Friday. And I told my assistant, if she hit back, cool. If she don't worry about it. What's for me is for me, and that shit is not happening. And I don't mind. And I share with them. I'm not gonna walk, bitch. What's wrong with you? And I'm not driving y'all know I got my little meat. I'm not driving my little meat down to fucking Jackson. I'm not driving. I got 20 years in. I'm not driving. Not at all. And I think one more thing, go back to the consistency and the consistency of performance and whatever the craft is, like to be consistent. There's the thing, another random fucking quote, which is some fucking, one of the presidents, I don't remember who it is, but they asked, and he goes, I always read the sports section of the newspaper before I read the headlines. And they asked him why, and he said, because the sports headlines are always about accomplishments. The front page is always what's fucked up in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that led to this conversation where they talked about Willie Mays, right? And they asked Willie Mays why he plays so hard every time he's out in the field. And this was on ESPN, I remember this. And he said, there's someone sitting in the stands with their kid saying, that's the greatest baseball player who's ever lived. And if they see me sitting like this or not engaged, like I don't give a fuck, they're gonna go, that's the best. And so it's important to remain consistent. And again, that goes to also knowing your brand and all that shit and living up to the standard you set for yourself. So. Oh my God, that is so affirming. That's really so, when I tell you, sometimes I feel overdressed and over everything and big, but I told them too, I don't know which coda session I said it. What's his name? Who did American Idol? What's his damn name? The white dude. What's his name? The white dude who did
Simon
American.
It's a lot of white dudes. What's his
Simon.
name?
Simon.
Right.
Oh, Simon Cowell. Oh,
Simon Cowell. When
Help
he
me
was
help you.
when, when he was doing America's Got Talent, his first commercial out about it, like it was him, and he was showing clips of people who were auditioning, and he was sitting at a desk, and he was like, "Look, if you think you've gone too big, go bigger." And I was like, mother, and I just felt like he was talking to me. I never intended to audition for America's Got Talent or whatever it was that he was doing next. But it just really affirmed, like, every time I go somewhere, like, if it's, I know you don't know these venues, but I'm gonna just say, if it's Mike and Dim Lights, if it's the Lounge, or if it's Fly Pose, these are all venues in LA, y'all. If it's Mike and Dim Lights, which is the super, Black Power, and then there's SHIHAN, where you got every fucking body, you have producers in the audience, that's actually how I got on. SHIHAN's show is how I got on Versus and Flow, because Dawn actually skipped over me when she was here in Atlanta, and I was pissed in a motherfucker, because I'm like, they put people on that were from Chicago that have been here a second on the fucking show in Atlanta, pissed me the fuck off. And I've been in here, but I was like, it's cool. And then y'all just got to keep going, y'all. What do I keep telling y'all? Just keep going. Keep going. You got to believe in yourself for the fucking long haul, because it was SHIHAN's, my rotation. I had a rotation pre-COVID, and we could talk about that later. A rotation. I would hit up SHIHAN in January, be like, what's up in March? Just say I knew where I was going the whole year, right? So, but that's the skeleton. And then you got to be, ready for the, other things that happen, right? So I was at SHIHAN's show, my usual March feature, and Dawn was in the audience, and it was the Roach poem that she loved. It was the Roach poem which was funny and lighthearted, but had a message, right? Funny, lighthearted, but had a message. I did the Roach poem, and that's what fucking got me on Versus and Flow with Chrisette Michelle. And now Chrisette Michelle and I are loose friends. Phone numbers in the phone, but not like, we spend time together type friends. So it's just one of those things. You just got to keep fucking going and believing in yourself. Okay, they skipped over me this time. They're going to have something else. And then that way I got flown out to LA, got to stay in a dope hotel and all that other stuff, and got an experience that I would have just came back home and got my own bed if I was here in Atlanta. So things, you just never know, how things go.
Yeah.
So
that's important, just that consistency to be part of that. Because the other thing, long term, if you just stretch that out even further, is that what winds up happening also is when 20 years later, people still see you doing that, they go, oh, some people get the light bulb 20, which sucks, but sometimes they get it later where they're like, oh, it wasn't a fad or a phase or a blah, 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 blah. And that's something that I recognized too, where I realized some of the mentors I had were all older than me. So they always looked at me as a kid because they met me as a teenager. So even when I became an adult, they still were like, it's like, God, he's cute and all that. And I'm like, yo, like, I've been in here long enough for you to recognize now that it wasn't just a fucking passing phase, and I'm serious about this. And you can see I'm passionate about what the fuck I talk about. Like, I don't like to bullshit my way through stuff, because I think long term, look, I have friends I've known almost 40 years. Like, I've had long ass term friends, and I believe in that because I feel like having just like the motherfuckers who I meet that have 8 million new friends, every time I see them, I'm like, ooh, that's the motherfucker you gotta stay away from.
Yes, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know we talked a lot. Does anybody have any other questions? His Cash App is there. It goes away in the replay. So please at least put it in your phone, send him something. And thank you so much for being on here, SHIHAN. We do have to go over.
I got one more question if we still got time. I don't know.
We got time. Like. Hey, y'all can read your curriculum for all I care. Y'all feel
ahead.
All right, that's a bet. But you said, but you mentioned like everybody thinks like, they can go anywhere, just find a poet, whatever. Why do you think it's like that? And do you think that's changing? And how have you seen the poetry evolve over time, like from Deaf Poetry to now?
The one about poets being everywhere is, and I think social media plays a lot into it, because there's a million fucking poetry videos all over the place. There's a million platforms that show videos. So the idea is there's a bunch of them out there. As far as poetry evolving, I argue with some of my friends, even some of the older head poets, Well, I feel like there are some doper writers now than in my generation of poets, but I still feel we'll wipe the floor up with them because we have way more fucking range in topic and writing ability than they do, because they talk about the one thing only and they just become that poet. And I feel like, answering both, that's kind of what it is. I feel like it has evolved. I think there's some better writers. There are people who are on about the craft and learning, and that, because it's possible now. It's possible. Like, it sounds so fucking crazy thinking when Def Poetry came out, YouTube was not nothing. YouTube was not jumping off at all. And so now that's everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the Snap, TikTok. There's so much of that shit that it's something they cannot ignore, but the access and the resources are available to them if they want to know more. That's the thing. You can find out more just by connecting to the person you saw. Like, you could click on their shit and then all their friends are fucking do, and I see another poetry video, do another poetry video, or I see a thing. I love watching interviews, right? Like, those things I wasn't able to see when I was young. Seeing all these old ass interviews, like, because I love Nikki Giovanni. Nikki Giovanni is my favorite poet, like living poet, and I'm like, to see all the interviews with her and after. Like, it's dope to me. I love shit like that. I love that. I remember Nikki Giovanni, after I did Love Like, I walked backstage, probably my highlight of my career. I walked backstage and she grabbed my hand and she goes, "I wish more poets wrote about love the way you did." And she wrote my mother a note. And it was weird. The weird part was, I was raised by my dad, so it was weird giving my mom a random ass note from Nikki Giovanni. But I was still like, yo, like, that felt so dope. That made me feel like seen, you know? And I feel like we all feel like we want our stories to be heard, but we want to be seen. We want to be visible. We want to be recognized for what it is we do. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the fucking thing. So yeah, there's opportunities now. And I think taking advantage, looking at the people I don't like. I watch everything. Just as a writer, you should read as many different fucking types of from as many different genres as possible, because just reading poems or just reading your own shit, there's no growth in that. You know, when I meet poets who only read their own shit, I'm like, yep, you can tell you only read your own shit because it sounds the same all the time. Like, I love Stephen King. Like, I'm big on Stephen King shit because, again, that's not what I do. So I'm interested in language and effective language. So I watch shit, read stuff to see how people tell stories in different places so that I can grow my vocabulary also, so I can learn how to tell my story to people who normally would not give a fuck or never knew I existed until I was able to give them something. You know what I mean? That they were able to apply and feel. That's a real fucking thing, dude. Like, I can't overestimate the value of connecting to somebody and making someone feel something that they never thought was a possibility, you know? So yeah. Any other?
The other thing too about television that construes this person must be dope is that, at least in a poetry slam, the winner had to do 3 poems, right? So in today's feature world, that's about a feature. So, you know, if you watch somebody win a slam, you could be like, oh, well, at least they got those 3 poems. They can come feature for me if they're brand new, right? I'm talking about like somebody brand new. Oh, you're like, oh, that was really cool. They did a good job. They won. Cool. They got these 3 poems. It did well. The crowd seemed to like them, appreciate them, and they knew what they were doing. You were able to watch them through 3 different phases. So I'm more apt to book somebody off of watching a 3-poem feature than watching somebody on TV, because how many poems do they need on TV? 1. That's right. You only need 1.
And the most important part of a feature, this is just for y'all and my own personal feeling, is what goes on when you're not doing the poems.
The transitions, yes.
So the transitions are so fucking important, because there's a bunch of dope poets who are boring as fuck when they're not reading poems, and you're like, oh my God. Then they can read another, or what they'll do, because they know they're not good at those transitions, which is something you have to work at, they'll string a whole set together. So they just read 20 straight minutes of poems. That shit ain't.
And then you're confused.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck? You talking about rappers singing now hamburgers? Like, it's all over the place. And you're like, I can't. So transitions between in your set is super duper important.
Working on your show.
Also, if you're gonna read, you know who's great at reading also? Like
Jamal St. John.
Jamal St. John is great too, but like Jessica Care Moore was one of my favorite people to watch do a set like off page, because it's not the prop, it's more of a prop. It's there, and it's not the motherfucker just buried into their page, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I came to see you and hear you, but I need there's a connection.
And then, you know, and I told them this too. I was like, just because you're reading doesn't mean that you shouldn't be performing. Like, I plan on reading on Sunday now, just because we're talking about trigger warning. I was like, boom, I could do trigger warning. And then I want to do my Meek Mill's Dreams and Nightmares 2 remix. And I've been trying to memorize it, but it's a lot. It's a long ass song. But anyway, so so I'm gonna do those on Sunday. My poetry night is this Sunday for me to host. But anyway, so I was gonna do those. But even though I plan on reading, they're gonna be way out here. It's still a performance. It's still you. They still want to see that. And if you do a feature, it's okay. I feel like it's okay to read one of your poems, like depending on how many poems you're doing, like one or two, maybe, you know what I mean, depending on the situation. But when sometimes somebody will be like, no, you can't read it at my feature. So whatever you're gonna do, it needs to be memorized. And that just helps your brain muscle too. But there's the YouTube of Love Like. That's at a club though. I didn't see it for Def Poetry.
I don't know. So it got taken. So Viacom did a sweep.
Yes.
And they took stuff off because the video when it was.
Remember my website went down and I hit you up.
Yeah.
Not my whole website.
Had a huge sweep. Like when I remember, because it was exciting. I remember when it hit 1 million, I was like, yo, and I asked my friend, because I didn't know how to do a screenshot. I was like, can you do a screenshot? Because this is first poetry video that hit 1 million, and then it hit 5 million, and then it hit 8. And I was like, oh my God, and then Viacom wiped all this stuff off. And I was like, oh.
But they did get a screenshot though, didn't they?
They got a screenshot. So I have the 1 and 3 million.
I bought the episodes. I bought the Def Poetry episode, so I hope you got a cut of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
no. They got one check for their performance.
Yeah, we got one, and we got residuals, but that was kind of it, really. Like, that was it.
Okay.
That was it.
There, yeah. So I found that one.
I'll throw a little more on the Cash App in that case.
So Asia was on here, you know, Asia Sampson from Florida. So he was on here, and it's, you know, you don't have to share this if you don't want, but he's posh. We all know this. And so he was talking about where he hit $1 million. In which then, because we were talking about how if somebody made $50,000 and spent a year and spent 20 years at their job as a whatever, they would also hit $1 million at some point. Have you hit $1 million residually? And that's not to say that you are a millionaire now, because I even went back. Remember I told y'all, I said, oh shit, I'm going back to ask my tax guy had I hit $1 million. So yes, I have hit $1 million. I'm definitely not a millionaire. So have you hit $1 million? Yeah. Somewhere. Yeah.
Back in 05, I want to say 05, 06, something like that.
Hey, that's awesome to raise your kids on. Hell yeah. I mean, but you know, me and my friend used to talk about feature, like we would exchange feature information, and we would be like, was it ramen noodles? Was it gourmet pizza? Or was it a full meal? That's how we would describe it. We'd be like, all right, well, it was a gourmet pizza, but you still got to bring your books or whatever, like, or the hotel was cheap.
I have a union in my head, and the union in my head says you can do 3 for the love jobs.
Yep.
The homies, it could be the friend, whatever. You get 3 for the love jobs a year.
A year. A year. Yep. And then it's my business. And there's no rhyme or reason. I'm not necessarily from Atlanta. So when people are like, oh, you got to get back to the community, I'm like, what community? Where's the community? But you know, that's not to say that I don't believe that there is a community to give back to. But it's my business. If I feel like doing it for kids or elephants or llamas, whatever, you know, it's just whatever I feel like doing when I feel like doing it. And if I don't, it's not personal.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, this is so great. Okay. All right, y'all. We got 14 minutes. Thank you, SHIHAN. We can run through our poem real quick in the writing prompt. And that's SHIHAN's Cash App. SHIHAN, I will hit you when class is over. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you very much. I appreciate the Cash App too. Thank you very much, y'all.
You're welcome. Hey, and let us know about Omari. Even if he says no, it would just be nice to know that, you know, he considered it.
All right, cool. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, bye. That was awesome. Did y'all enjoy that? He had the most.
Hell
energy.
yeah, we did.
Yeah, get off of mute. Get off of mute. We back. That was, he had the most. I think I'm gonna have him open up the fall session, because over the summer it's gonna be us working on our projects. So I think I'm gonna have him open up fall. Like we had Jeremy, who was the, oh y'all, yeah, most of y'all were there for Jeremy opening up the winter session. That shit.
Yeah, it was a couple of times I almost got caught watching them, so it was great.
Watching.
Cause you know, I was like in 9th grade when it came out. So watching HBO late at night, I
got caught watching him on. Oh, gotcha. That's what's up.
I told Georgia and me that story. She was like, "Oh my God, that is so great. Not that you almost got your ass whooped, but."
That's funny.
But no, that was great. That was great.
It was really great. Super great. So this week's writing prompt is a prayer, and the prayer can be fun, funny, serious, whatever you want to do. It is in your curriculum. I'll screen share it real quick, and then we'll just get out of here.
Hey, Sheba.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I have to jump off because I have to get ready for FA.
Y'all want to just end for tonight? Y'all want me to just send it to you so you can read it on your own?
I mean, could you please send it to me?
Yeah,
I know I have to jump off.
You can send it, but tell us what it is.
Yeah, keep going.
Right.
I say, we talked about that poetry, or that, I hate when people you say the word like that. We talked about that poetry orgasm, so I didn't know if y'all were good for the night. Like, okay, that was it. That was enough.
Absolutely not.
Continue. Okay, hello. That's what's up. You're like, run us our.
All right.
Run us our 11 minutes. Run us our 11 minutes.
Second round.
Second round. Okay, all right, Corbin. Yes, you will get it. The curriculum is done for the week, so you will have it tomorrow morning with whenever the link comes. I told y'all the link comes at a weird time, sometimes in the middle of the night. So y'all will have it for tomorrow. But all right, so I'm going to screen share.
All right, cool.
Corbin, have a good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. So, y'all want to watch SHIHAN's videos together?
Yes, I love watching it. Let's.
All right, let me go back. Stop share. Screen share. Share sound. Boom. Okay. And then all right, here it is at a club. I have not seen this. I don't know the quality of this video. I mean, oh, this is poetry's.
It's called Love Like. And, oh God, I have not done this in a minute too. Here we go.
I think that's both see it.
I want to love like me, thinking of you, thinking of me, thinking of you type love, or me telling my friends more than I've ever admitted to myself about how I feel about you type love, or hating how jealous you are, but loving how much you want me all to yourself type love, like seeing how your first name just sounds so good next to my last name, and shoot, I wanted to see how far I could get without calling you, and I barely made it out of my garage. See, I want to wait until she falls asleep, then wonder if she drew out us being in love type love, or who loves the other more, or what she's doing at this exact moment, or slow dance in the middle of our apartment to the music of our hearts, close my eyes and imagine how a love so good could just hurt so much when she's not there, and shoot, I love not know where this love is headed type love, and check this, I want to place those little post-it notes all around the house so she'll never forget how much I love her type love, and I want to make her feel as good as she makes me feel type love, like wanting her to distract me for whatever I'm doing type love, and just like in high school, I want to spend hours on the phone, I say anything, then fall asleep on the phone, and wake up with her right next to me, then smell her open my covers type love, and I want to deal with my friends, making fun of me, way in front of them, when they're the same kind of love type love, only difference is, this is one of those real love type loves. I want to actually try counting the ways I love her, then lose count in the middle just to start all over again type love. And I want to break down the time we spend in the seconds, just so it sounds like you spend more time together type love. And also like in high school, I want to celebrate one of those 1 month anniversaries, even though it ain't really anniversaries, but doing it just because it makes it happy type love. And I want to fall in love with the melody. The phone plays when her number's down into it, then talk to her until I lose my breath. She leaves me breathless, but with expanding my lungs, I inhale all of her back into me. I want to love that makes me need to change my cell phone calling plan to something that allows me to talk to her longer. Because in all honesty, I want to avoid one of them high cell phone bill type loves. And I want a love that makes me regret how small my hands are. I mean the lines of my palms like give me enough time as long as I like to type love. And I want to love that makes stutter just thinking about how strong this love is, and I want to love. They just want to cut off all of my hair, which I did, but not for that reason. I was just tired of combing it, which is all the story. Now all the hair, I got this clip the split ends and trim my mustache, but it will still be a symbol of how strong my love is for her type love, and I feel comfortable now, so I can tell y'all this. I even be fantasizing about walking out on the green light, just dying here by a car, just so I could lose my memory, get transported to some third world country, just to get treated then. Some want me to become with you so I can fall in love with you in a different language and see if it still feels the same. See, I want a love that is as unexplainable as she is, and I'm married, and she is the love I share this love with. Thank you.
Oh, so that was the married version. Remember he was talking about the single version and the married version? That's cool. So this, can y'all see my arrow? Right here. So this brother in the middle is Bosia. And Bosia, do y'all remember the movie Hitch with Will Smith and somebody else? So Bosia had the funniest line in the movie, I think. So Will Smith got stung by a bee. He needed some Benadryl, ran into like a pharmacy, and Bosia was behind the counter. And then Will Smith said, yo, what aisle is the Benadryl on, or whatever it was he was looking for, right? And Bosia's line was aisle 5. And then so he, like, you know, Will Smith turns around and he goes, which one's aisle 5? And then Bosia's next line was the one with the big 5 over it. And that was it. I thought that was like the best sarcasm. Bosia is amazing. And then this is Jamel. So he's a DJ and a poet. And so SHIHAN and Jamel and Poetry and another brother are the ones that started. And then some amazingness that Poetry has had a wife who's had lupus, cerebral palsy, forever, since we've known her, and he's always taking care of her, like, all his poetry money. He actually started a poetry workshop inspired by College of Dope Ass Writers, and he started it. He started it. Where's y'all? He started it during our winter session. Week 7. All right, here we go. Week 7. Boom, 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 boom. All right, so let's talk about graduation next week. So graduation is you choose 2 of your poems that you want, 2 of your poems from this workshop that you want to share on Tuesday. We don't give you feedback. We can give you general feedback, oh, like, you know, like a good job or whatever, but we're not going to go into feedback details. So that is graduation on Tuesday. And then Thursday is when you present your whole business wherever it is at this point. So the only reason we're taking a month off, damn near, is because so next week we graduate 25 and 27, and I'm going on a real legit vacation. I am performing with Dichotomy, and Masterpiece in Panama and South America, but I don't get back to the 15th, and so of course I'm going to need that week to regroup and catch up. And then so we start back on the 22nd, and will be Tuesday only over the summer. Then in the fall I will determine if it would be split back up again. So Tuesday only, and the business course will be masterclass, and that was inspired by last week's business class with Miss Jolie and Nora. It was just really good, and what made it really good is that we were putting into practice the things that we were talking about at the time. So we talked about having a separate phone number. So we signed up together. We were like, all right. Like we, you know, all of us were like on mute, and it was just like a great working session. And then we did 3 great things last week. We did the trust the phone number. We did, what else did we do, Miss Jolie? We did 3 things. 3 super, I wrote them in the, wait.
Yeah, I'm like, look, I wrote it all down.
It was, self-lender.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that. And you also wrote down like the titles of our books and our release date of when they're coming out.
Yep. We did the account.
You told us about QuickBooks for self-employed.
Mm-hmm. And self-lender, which is the separate from that. And so we all signed up for QuickBooks together. And that is where you attach QuickBooks. It's a really super cheap amount. It's like $7 to $10 a month. And once you, well, we'll talk about it on Thursday, but once you attach it to your account, it does all your accounting for you as a self-employed person. And then it tells you what taxes you have to pay quarterly, if any. And then you just attach accountant to it or your tax person. If they get the file, they file your taxes the end, or you can get QuickBooks to file your taxes for you. So we did all these things together, which made it really, really dope. And then we did self-lender and we did Cresta. So we did a lot. So this week we're going to talk about promotions and marketing, and Asia will be back on. Y'all loved Asia. So I'm bringing him back. And then he's going to talk about branding, promotion, and marketing. I think he did the end of the winter session, which is why I felt like he was in the spring session, but he's high energy too, and's got a lot of great information about branding, and he does all of my branding. So I have not signed the contract yet, but it is a like 90% chance that I'm going to be on a reality show. And it is a LGBT dating reality show, which I have no intentions of finding love on that show, I'm sure. But guess what I am going to use it for? Can somebody take a wild guess?
Branding, marketing, making some money.
Hello.
Using the platform. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, absolutely. So what's funny is I told them that if I had to fight somebody, that I'm just going to get off the show. I can't do it because I'm a softie and I just can't. I can't fight anybody. I'll lose. So, but my friend, you know, everybody that I've told this to, they were like, but you gotta throw a wine glass. I was like, oh my God. They're like, you gotta throw a glass of wine. I'm like, oh my God, that's hilarious. So last night, for whatever reason, I guess IG heard my thoughts, and I got down the rabbit hole of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, the recap on IG, which is an hour long. Did y'all know that? Did y'all watch that shit on IG? Yes, it was an hour long. So anyway, so it wasn't that bad when I looked at it. I was like, oh, it ain't that bad, you know, infidelity, blah, blah. Right. But I was like, oh, okay, I could, this is cool. So I haven't signed the contract yet. So I'm telling y'all that to say this is gonna be really fun. If you're here in Atlanta, you may end up having a cameo, just, you know, being out at the events that start doing, etc. So
I want a cameo.
Huh?
I definitely would like a cameo.
You can, yeah, I mean, you can be on the show. Actually, they're actually looking for more LGBT women to, you know, for season 2, 3, whatever. And I don't know if they have filled all their needs for season 1, but I'll definitely drop it in. Actually, I dropped it in the group. See, let me tell y'all something. When I drop stuff in the group, I know y'all ain't paying attention to it. Because sometimes y'all will react to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay. Because sometimes I feel like when I tag y'all and say, oh, I think you'll be good for this and blah, 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 then I feel like y'all perk up. But when I drop stuff in the group, it's also for my safekeeping, because then I want to delete it out of my email, right? But then I know it's in the group. So like all those contests and all those TV appearances and gigs and all that other stuff, trust me, I've either applied for it, gonna apply. Who's done their TEDx talk yet? Application. Right. That's what I thought. So it's due on the 30th.
Wow.
Get your shit together. Okay, people. So I have set aside to do mine tomorrow. Starry has hired me to, I talked about you last week, Starry. Starry has actually hired me to research some grants for her for being a woman and a poet. And so I'm almost finished with her spreadsheet. And once I finish Starry's spreadsheet, probably tomorrow, then I'm gonna go on to the TEDx thing. Like I have not, just like I give y'all, I have my list of shit that I need to do too, because it's like, it's the same thing for me. Getting out there, getting exposed. I mean, because as things are changing, I can't be like, oh, I'm just gonna do things the same. As soon as Jonathan said, get on TikTok, what we do? We got on TikTok. He proposed a good point. We were all like, let's do it. And I've been slacking on my TikTok, but I know it's another great platform. And now that I know how to merge it, I mean, from TikTok to IG, boom. How easy is that, right? So Yeah, trust me, when I'm putting those gigs and jobs and all this stuff in there, I'm also using it as a safe space, safe haven for me as well. So I know where to go back and look at. But TEDx is due on the 30th, and Ocala is small. Let me be the only one applying, and I'll be like, up, see y'all on stage. My 1 million views on my YouTube. No new friends. No new friends. Then I'm gonna be on a reality show. What do you think? What do you think Code and Zoom is gonna look like in the fall or whenever they release it? Actually, we're taping over the summer and releasing in the fall. So, hello. But anyway, so all right. So this is the poem of the week. This is called, and this was chosen by Georgia Me. I asked her for a recommendation, and she chose this. James Weldon Johnson, 1871 to 1938. And this is called The Creation. Let me put on my, she said it was one of her favorite poems in the world. And does anybody want to read it? When do y'all read it?
Got it.
Boom, do it.
I can.
Let me see if I can read. Let me see if I can see, first of all.
First of all, there's 3 pages. So Jacob Tree.
Oh shit.
It's not a short one, right? Last week, y'all got a short poem. All right, so Jay Catrice, you do up until and bulged the mountains up, and then Starry, you read the rest.
And what goes on?
So Jay Catrice, you start, and then you end right here. And then Starry, you read the rest. Okay, go ahead.
All right. And God stepped out on space, and he looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights, down in a cypress swamp. Then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other. And God said, that's good. Then God reached out and took the light in his hands, and God rolled the light around in his hands until he made the sun. And he set the sun ablazing in the heavens, and the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered it up in a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and stars. Then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world. And God said, that's good. Then God himself stepped down, and the sun was on his right hand, and the moon was on his left. The stars were clustered around his head, about his head, and the earth was under his feet. And God walked, and where he trod, his footsteps hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains up.
Then he stopped and looked and saw that the earth was hot and barren. So God stepped over to the edge of the world, and he spat out the 7 seas. He batted his eyes, and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands, and the thunders rolled. And the waters above the earth came down. The cooling waters came down. Then the green grass sprouted, and the little red flowers blossomed. The pine tree pointed his finger to the sky, and the oak spread out his arms. The lake cuddled down in the hollows of the ground, and the rivers ran down to the sea. And God smiled again, and the rainbow appeared and curled itself around his shoulder. Then God raised his arm, and he waved his hand over the sea and over the land. And he said, bring forth, bring forth. And quicker than God could drop his hand, fishes and fowls and beasts and birds swam the rivers and the seas, roamed the forests and the woods, and split the air with their wings. And God said, that's good. Then God walked around, and God looked around on all that he had made. He looked at his sun, and he looked at his moon, and he looked at his little stars. He looked on his world with all its living things, and God said, I'm lonely still. Then God sat down on the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river, he sat down with his head in his hands. God thought and thought till he thought, I'll make me a man. Up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, and by the bank of the river, he kneeled him down. And there, the great God Almighty, who lit up the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the most far corner of the night, who rounded the earth in the middle of his hand. This great God, like a mammy bending over her baby, knelt down in the dust, toiling over a lump of clay, till he shaped it in his own image. Then into it he blew the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Amen. Amen.
I love that.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
Okay, Georgia, may I say it?
Yeah, that was good.
that was a good one. That was a good pick, Georgia. Good
Yeah.
job. So you're gonna write this about where you live specifically, not about the whole earth. Don't worry about the whole earth. You already did that, right? So you're gonna write this about your neighborhood, where you're from. It doesn't have to be your current neighborhood. It could be anywhere in your life that you love, that you've been, that you've lived, and you're going to have your God create this in specifics. So he said, he's talking here about oak and pine trees. What if there's not pine trees in LA, right? There's not pine trees in LA, there's palm trees. So use this as your guide, and you're gonna write about, you're gonna write this poem about wherever you want, wherever you have lived, and the people that your God has created, and what lives there, and who lives there, and buildings, etc. So that is your prompt, is the creation, your version, hood version. The creation. Oh, why did they copy today? It usually never copies. Oh, it doesn't copy the other way around. Neighborhood version. All right. So that is your right. You'll get the rest of your curriculum. I think what else was there anything bonus in here this week? Then bonus steps for getting published. Here are 12 podcast. Oh, I don't think y'all could see that. My bad. Screen share. This was in last week's curriculum. Make sure you watch and listen to these. Go publish yourself 12 podcasts to listen to. I think they're on Spotify. They're really good and they're short. So that it will help you with publishing your book as well. So does anybody have any questions for me? No? Y'all have an
I have a question. What episode was the Ocala episode class? Was the Ocala?
Oh, when was Amira? I can hold on. Let me go to, because I think I saved it. Let me go to, yep, because I went to it yesterday, because I was like, I know that it's coming up. Hold on, let me go to GroupMe. Log in. Facebook. Go to College of Dope Ass Writers. Share codes and documents. Oh, you know what? I think I put it in College of Dope Ass. Yep, I did. I put it in our folder. So here, I just put it in GroupMe. So it's now in the GroupMe. The big ass flyer is now in GroupMe. That's due on the 30th. Go to the website that's on the flyer, and I haven't opened it either. I have no idea the first step about it, except for what Amira told us. I will find out what episode she was on, so you can go back and look at it again. But I know that the theme is moving forward. So you need to think about anything about moving forward. Anything about moving forward. I already know what I'm gonna do. So that was the biggest part to me, part of my procrastination and putting it off, like, oh, I need to think of what is my moving forward, because that's the theme. So I already figured mine out. I know what I'm gonna submit a poem as part of my application and fill out the rest, whatever that is, and hopefully it goes well. All of y'all should do it. We are all worthy to be on that fucking stage. It's 12 minutes and it's in November. So I'm also this weekend going to a training to learn how to run for Atlanta Public School Board. So I'm going to be on the Atlanta Public School Board ballot in November. And so I'm going to need all of y'all help to campaign and get me out there. Vote for whatever, Queen Chiba. Yeah. Nora, I don't know. You gotta post for me all the way from Ohio, Miss Jolie. So, oh, I like that chair. That looks comfy. All right. So that's all I got. Does anybody have any announcements? Jay Catrice is featuring for you on Thursday, Justin? Or that already passed? That was last week. It was last week. I missed it.
Oh my God.
Get
her, Jay.
Yeah, no, she did last week. It was great.
Is it recorded?
It was great, and I appreciate that.
Well, Jay Catrice
it's recorded. You can go in there.
Okay. Drop the link. Drop the link in the group me.
Okay, yeah, I'll be putting all the episodes like on Spotify and all that too, so you can go and listen to them on there too.
Good. Okay, cool.
If anybody else is trying to be on there, if you want to like do a little interview,
Dominique, Shari, Miss Jolie, Nora.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, it pays the whole $50 and you don't even have to leave your living room.
So. When is the show? Or when is it?
Thursdays.
Yeah, every other Thursday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I got
How many poems do we have to do?
I'll hit you up, Star. I don't even really, it's really more of just a conversation. Like I try to make it like an interview type. So you can do a poem if you want to. I just give people options. But one, really, just one.
Oh, okay, yeah, I want to do it.
I think that was it. SHIHAN was great. Definitely gonna have him open up in the fall. That was super dope. He had so much energy, right?
Right.
Yeah, he did. That was good. All right, you guys, it is 11:13. Have a great night. All of you should jump in on Thursday. It is our last Thursday class. If you have any questions or have anything that you want answered, or even if you're not signed up for a business course, just jump in on Thursday and come through. We can help answer any questions that you have or work on anything that you got going on. So I will see y'all Thursday at 9:00. Yes, I was trying to think. I felt like I overbooked something, but no, I didn't. All right, see y'all Thursday at 9:00 and drop that link in there. And Jay Catrice is featuring for me in June, the fourth Sunday in June, which is June 27th. And then July 25th is my book release. And I'm working on it, y'all. Y'all gave me the June 19th to get it up on Amazon. So Asia is actually working on the cover right now. Mr. Fun is working on the inside. And I'm rolling. So I hope y'all are rolling as well. Peace out. Let me know if y'all have any questions. Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Nora, gotcha.